Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of the Eternal Backlog podcast. I'm Nomad.
And I'm Shady Armic.
How's it going, mate? How you doing? It's been a mad couple of weeks here at the Eternal Backlog Towers. Yeah.
Long 2 weeks. Pretty good response from the first episode, I'll say.
Yeah, pretty decent. And we have definitely got some interesting results coming off the back of the polls. Starting a little bit later to this today because, apparently I ran out of shaving foam and had to take a shave with shampoo this morning, which was quite interesting.
So you're the kind of person that shaves first thing in the morning rather than the night before.
Yeah. No, I don't like any, like even feel. I want my face to feel squeaky smooth, you know. Like
see, I'm the opposite.
Smooth.
I can't do it like 5 minutes before because I'll rush and cut myself and I'll have bumps and everything. I'll do it the night before, put some lotion on, wake up, do another dose of lotion, and I'm like, great, I'm glowing in the morning.
You were super like hardcore into shaving videos at one point as well.
At one point I was, yeah. I'm still hardcore into shaving, but not the videos so much.
Okay, so you've still got the, what was it, Barasso?
I just bought a new tub of Parasso, actually, yeah. But I tell you what I'm into, and you've tuned into the shaving podcast
the shaving
this week.
podcast here, ladies and gentlemen.
The Shave Shop. I'm into tobacco. It's got a pretty strong sandalwood smell to it. If you're into sandalwood, highly recommend it. Not too expensive, $20, $25. You get like a glass tub of it. Lasts you like 2-3 months.
Nice.
Whip it up on a nice badger or boar brush and slap that on. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah. Beautiful, absolutely. That is our recommended by shaving cream of the week.
Just next week.
Catch us next week. Anyway, we're going to go straight on to some housekeeping pieces because we obviously had our poll last week and we had our viewer of the question of the week. Let's get on with some of that. Interesting results coming off the back of that. We asked whether you would buy a PS5 Pro. And out of the respondents that we had, so we had about we're episode 1, we have 14 people take part, right? Only one person said they'd buy it.
Flat out, yes.
Only one person with a flat out yes. 5 depended on price. And then 8 ran the lead with the absolute not response. So by and large, people don't see it as a big enough jump. But you'd still have some there in the middle that perhaps might be interested in doing it. So
should have put that into percentages, really, now that I think about it.
Yes, we shall do that for next week.
There you go. Carol Vorderman will be our special guest.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned something about Carol Vorderman because I was going to use her as a slight analogy for when I get on to talking about Control later. So,
there we go. Question I have then. So, where did you sit on that scale? I think, if I remember correctly, you were the absolutely not camp.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Not a big enough jump for me, so...
Yeah.
And I've not had my PS5 long. I've not even had my PS5 for a year yet.
Oh, really?
So that's a bit of a harder sell. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I think shortly after, like, July or...
Did you get the Slim or did you get the Fat Boy?
I didn't get the hip replacement one, no.
No?
The one that looks like a hip replacement with a... Perfect! Disc drive that CEX probably sells separately because if you can pull it apart, they'll sell it as a separate component.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, they both look like hip replacements.
The PS5 is very interesting. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that discussion to bring out a console that needs its own individual stand so it doesn't wobble. Yeah. But, it is what it is. Viewer question of the week, ladies and gentlemen. We've got another one for you. Please get involved in this one. That question you can respond to across all platforms on TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, X. I mean, we're aggregating all of the responses. Question of the week was, for this week, is what was the first ever video game that you played that truly blew your mind? And why is that? Now, we're not going to tell you ours this week because we're going to shunt that over to episode 3 and we'll give you our responses and pick out some of the best responses and basically read it out on the podcast. Now, we did have last week's, which was asking people about, what was the game that you feel most ashamed or guilty of keeping in your backlog. And we had a couple of responses. One came back as Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh.
Sitting in that pile.
Disgraceful.
So, and that was another one that's still in my pile, by the way.
You haven't played Red Dead? Have you played the first Red Dead?
I played 3 hours of Red Dead 2. I'm still in like the snow scene or whatever.
Oh, no. See, I hated that snow scene. To me, a Western shouldn't have snow in it. I get it's in a different part and a different region and stuff, but it needs to be a typical spaghetti Western. And that is the thing that I disliked about 2 the most. I still think 1's better, but technologically 2 is amazing. They're both amazing games, but 1 sits very special to me.
Yeah, so I have played 1. I really enjoyed that. But yeah. So we had that. And we also had another person mention the Batman series, interestingly enough.
Oh, God.
They also haven't played the Batman series, so...
I think you're rubbing off onto the audience now.
Yeah, possibly. So, yeah, hopefully we'll have a few more responses from you guys for the next episode. Like I say, we'll read out the best ones. I just wanted to do that housekeeping up front because we've got a whole bunch of stuff to go through this week. And just a bit of a shout out, really, if we're going to really emphasize something that's additional value, it's probably worth following our Instagram page because we do some exclusive stuff that's behind the scenes, which you wouldn't consider putting up. But it's just nice little status updates of what's going on in the background. And I really enjoy putting those together just because there's just little fun little snippets. So if you want a little bit of extra content that is exclusive, you can get it on Instagram, and you get to throw in all of the interesting music that you can throw on as a background, including the Grand National, which I won on yesterday.
Oh, how much you win?
I didn't realise that an each way bet doesn't pay out that great. So my horse came in the last place, so you can win up to 6 places.
Okay.
And it came 6th. Okay. So I was super excited. I was like, yeah, it's a 34-1 on a £4 bet. That's a nice, tasty little return. Turns out I got an extra £3.50.
There you go.
so that was it. So then I took that, put it straight into the reels, and it all went.
You can go and buy yourself a bottle of White Lightning now. Celebrate.
There we go. Well, speaking of which, we had a bit of a haul yesterday, so there's not even the money for the White Lightning left. So
you did pick up a couple of sus games.
What's the sus games? Oh, you think they're sus? I've got a couple of really sus games coming, which we're going to cover on this podcast at some point in the future, including Jasper Carrot's Golden Balls for the Nintendo DS.
Jasper Carrot's got a game.
And Russell Grant Astrology. Russell Grant, Where's
the game in that, though?
Well, we're about to find out.
I mean, is it like one of those matching games where it's got like the astrology, the star signs on the left and then the descriptions on the right? Like, oh, that sounds like a Pisces. Let me match that up.
I don't know, because even, what's his name, Paul McKenna or someone like that released a How to Stop Smoking game on the Nintendo DS. So I don't think all Nintendo DS games are actual games. They just went through a really weird period of just throwing anything on it. So I'm going to be getting these weird, cheap 50p
That's probably
Nintendo DS games.
It is probably why Nintendo clamped down on what you can put up on the Nintendo store. I think they were like, oh god, we can't do the DS thing again.
Well, it doesn't seem to stop them for their digital store on Switch at the moment. Some of the garbage on that. I mean, you look at all the garbage. Downhill? Oh, it's downhill even on Xbox. You look at some of the stuff that's even on Xbox and you wonder, why the hell was that released?
What was that one game? It was like a Last of Us ripoff on Switch. It was like a bootleg.
Oh, was it?
Oh, if I remember the name, I'll throw some footage on screen right now. But it was a complete ripoff. The characters even looked like them as well.
Yeah. I
don't even think they walked properly. Their legs just glided across the ground as they moved. It was bad. Yeah.
There is no curation on the stores these days. PlayStation is exactly the same. They're like, oh, we'll just throw it up. Someone might buy it. I like a bit of curation.
I think that's what happens when you have such a popular ID at Xbox program. Everyone's trying to catch up by just putting all the crap on there, isn't it?
Quite possibly. Mm-hmm. Give us the curation. I can understand from one perspective they want it to be a free publishing platform. At least it's not as bad as Steam, where there's no filters on it as well.
Junk.
Wow. Yeah. Some of the stuff that you can get on that is like proper, check your hard drive type thing.
Yeah, it feels like the PS1 chip discs all over again.
Well, no,
it's
like proper 18 plus adult content.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean some of that stuff.
I did have a couple of those on the old PlayStation as well. You've got one of those dodgy games because when you boot up the PS1, you got the yellow diamond like graphic pops up, right? And then there's the second part of that, which is the PlayStation logo. If that that PlayStation logo doesn't show and it goes straight into a game, it's bypassed something on the system that stops people from playing that kind of content. It was real dodgy when you got into that territory.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it reminds me of the days of the Atari ST where I was when I was growing up, 8-9 years old, and we used to put the like Hollywood strip poker on it. It's like a 16-bit. I don't know. Looked like something out of the 80s.
30 years later, now you're doing a podcast.
There we go.
Led to good things.
Anyway, so that's the pretty much housekeeping covered up there. I just thought that the poll question and the viewer question, if we got that out of the way, so you guys can get interested and involved in that. We're going to shunt straight onto the news because there has been some very interesting news stories this week, I think, and there seems to be a bit more kicking about than what there was a couple of weeks back when we recorded episode 1. So we'll start off with a bit of Rockstar news. And that is that Rockstar is bolstering its GTA subscription service by adding classic games from its backlog to give it more value for its service. So you pay £4.99 at the moment for the GTA Plus. So you get a bunch of like shark card coinage and stuff for GTA Online, effectively. But now they're throwing in some games from their library. I'm assuming they're thinking, we've got to try and make this be a bit more of an extended value proposition. But it got me wondering whether they're looking at this, because like with the TV thing, you started to see things go a la carte anyway on Xbox and other platforms, right? You've got Ubisoft Plus, which is the worst deal out of the bunch. You've got EA Access, which is obviously bundled with Ultimate. But I wonder if Rockstar are looking at now, they might decide to segment some of their stuff and bolster up this GTA Plus thing and then eventually rebrand it. Because they're throwing in Bully and L.A. Noire into this $4.99 bundle. I don't know if you have any speculative thoughts on that.
I tell you one thing I disagree with what you just said, and that's Ubisoft is the worst game, worst deal. Because Grand Theft Auto, Rockstar have made some amazing games in their time, right? But in the last 10 to 15 years, they've done sweet FA. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't have the legacy that they once did to introduce this kind of service, right? At least Ubisoft have a plethora of games in the dozens, the 50s, the hundreds even possibly. But $4.99 a month just to add less than 10 possible games. What we're going to get, Midnight Club Dub Edition or something?
It was predominantly obviously for Grand Theft Auto and currency and all that lot in the game, but it looks like they're just bolstering it.
Well, that's
giving it some feed.
I honestly think they've gone way over budget with GTA 6. They've gone up to the board and they've said, we need more money. Board have said, no, you've taken too long to make this game, release it. And this is their way of trying to rake in a few quid. I reckon, because rumor has it, GTA 6 has gone past $2 billion in development so far.
Wow.
$2 billion.
Really? Oh, God.
Allegedly. And if that's true, that's the most expensive game ever made. And I can see that happening.
Sink a small country's economy for that money.
I mean, there's a few countries you could sink with that kind of money. But so, I mean, are the games being added really bad? No, L.A. Noire is a fantastic game. Love that. It's one of my all-time favorites. What else did you say? Bully.
Canis Canem Edit Bully, yeah.
Bully, I haven't played. I did buy it on sale recently, and it's in my backlog pile of shame.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, it's a great game.
Yeah.
Revered. Yeah. You'll enjoy that.
I get the feeling it's like Hogwarts Legacy.
Well, it's got a school theme to it. That's about as much as it matches.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in terms of the characters, Bullies have got obviously a bit more attitude and, it's a bit more, you're facing a lot of different school scenarios that perhaps is a bit more understandable and common to people, especially, when you're going to a little rough type school, you encounter your people that are making up for, they eventually possibly come out as gay later on in life, or they end up being bullies when they're in primary school. I don't know.
Or if you just happen to attend a school in North London, that's also an acceptable scenario. I mean, this might toughen you up, to be honest. It could be a good life lesson, but I was going to say something, but it's just, go on. I've lost my marbles.
No worries. So that was Rockstar. I just found it was interesting. I thought it was possibly, are they looking at bolstering that? Maybe not. Maybe they're just throwing in an extra bit of value for people's £4.99 a month subscription. They might even throw in something else into that at some point when GTA 6 comes along. I
have just remembered what I was going to say. If they really wanted to make some money off of this service, is one simple word, one simple game to add into that collection, that service. Manhunt. Add Manhunt back into the mix, 1 and 2, and then you've got the masses running, because remember, that game was banned in so many countries, and it's not even on the store right now. Not on back and pat, nothing. So if they can get Manhunt into that service, you'll have the masses flocking.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I can't remember playing that game, though. I think I played a little bit of it, but...
it was gruesome. You had to, really strategically...
Well, yes, you could suffocate people with a plastic bag and all that.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And you had to make sure that it was silent and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
It's a game that can't get made today, basically.
Yeah, and we've got another one of those later on in the show, which I'm going to talk about, but hey-ho.
So that was Rockstar, and moving on to a little bit of other news here. Cliff Bleszinski was kicking about on X. I think he's just getting frustrated. I think he's had enough of people just keep on going on about Gears. They don't understand that the IP's not, he doesn't have any control over what happens with Gears. Everyone's getting excited about a possible Gears 6 at the summer showcase, and Cliff's just trying to get on and make his comic. He's doing a comic series called Scrapper, which features like a hero dog, and he just wants to get on with that. And it's like a band where the crowd always wants you to play your all-time bangers, and you just don't enjoy playing it anymore, because that's all people remember you for, that major hit. And Cliff's just like, come on, leave it out.
Well,
move on.
It doesn't help that this past week or two, I think it was the senior art director or someone commented on an alleged rumor that Gears 6 is going to be announced at this summer showcase, and how it's going to make every other game look like child's play. Yeah. And then the senior art director or something responded to this tweet on X and just basically wrote, "Yep." And then the tweet's been deleted since then. But apparently it's caused a lot of insiders to come out of the woodwork and say, they've seen things, and it is the most impressive Unreal Engine 5 game ever made thus far.
Do you reckon it will eclipse Hellblade 2?
I think it will. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because besides Epic themselves, the Coalition are masters when it comes to Unreal Engine. Every time someone's struggling with game development, it's normally the Coalition. Microsoft ship over to, other studios to help with the engine. And the fact that it's taken this long, I really want to see a change in art direction. I don't want it to look like, Gears 1 through 5 with just a bit more lighting and ray tracing. No, I want it to really look dark, like when they, revamped the Batman series.
Yeah, just not muddy, like the 360 games.
Oh no, that was a typical Unreal Engine 3 trait. Actually.
Yeah.
But those days are long gone.
Yeah, fortunately. And I still would love to see a Gears collection. Just all of the... obviously, we've had the definitive... the remaster of the first Gears game. I'd love to see them go through and do 2 and 3. Just to play it, because they were great. Those first opening 3 Gears games was really good from a plot direction. And you started to lose me from Gears 4 onwards. It's interesting that you jump gen and you're losing me on the Gears front with these later games. Well, I'd love to see them do that.
That's where Cliff Bleszinski left. After 3, he dropped it, and then the Coalition was formed. So it's funny that you say that, because the Halo development story has followed the exact Gears development story almost as well. 1 to 3, Bungie, 1 to 3, Blazinski. And then they both switched management, different teams, and the story's just kind of been expanded when it was never really built for, 4, 5, and 6. It'll be interesting.
Pretty much like the TV series is where they know where they should really finish it, and they're pressured to continue on the story, perhaps.
That's it.
I don't know, but I would love to see a collection, but we'll see if anything happens on that.
But let me ask you, would you really want to see a collection though? Because 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I think, are all on Game Pass right now. So what's the collection?
But I just want to see that
single tile,
the extra life put into it. Obviously, you
want the quality of updates.
Quality of updates on it. I know you obviously Xbox will up your frame rates on that and do all of this upscaling and all of that stuff. But I actually want to see some re-artwork done. Mm-hmm. For all I bash Naughty Dog for literally remastering the hell out of everything, I would love to actually see the Gears stuff done in a similar way to the Master Chief Collection. So all of your 1 to 3, your maps from the multiplayer on that game are all in playlists. It's all combined. That type of thing. Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will happen.
Without the extra $10 price tag.
It won't. Yeah. That'd be nice. Speaking of which, there is some news, and this is going to get onto a bit of a debate here, because we've got two stories that are two stories that are centering around game preservation here, because the Wii U and the 3DS, and perhaps this news story caused me to go out and buy a 3DS this weekend, subliminally maybe.
Wait, I thought you had a 3DS.
No, I bought that 3DS this weekend.
Oh, God. Oh, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel now.
But the Wii U and the 3DS online services are now officially offline, and I think we've got the Xbox 360 online services going offline in July of this year. So it just reignites the debate. So basically, in a nutshell, if all of the digital purchases, if you bought them on Wii U from the eShop, you can still restore them. But if you are going in there looking to try and shop for any last remaining stuff, you can't get these things anymore. There's no way of buying digital versions of these games any longer. And some of these games, of course, were released digital only. So they're going to go into the complete vaporware, into the ether. There's no hard copy backup of this game. There are developers out there that don't even keep the original source code to games once they've been made. So these games could potentially, unless they've been put onto the 3DS, which a bunch didn't, they're never going to be seen again, which reignites the whole game preservation debate for me. Mm-hmm. And then to bundle on top of that, the 360. Interestingly enough, popular retro game YouTuber Metal Jesus Rocks, he was tweeting at Microsoft this week saying, look, I'm trying to get onto the 360 right now to buy some last Xbox Live Arcade games before I lose out on the opportunity. And he listed about 12 really good titles that still haven't got back compat over to this version of the Xbox we're on now. Games like Burnout Crash being a classic example, Poker Smash. He listed a whole bunch of other ones. So come July, these games, again, similar situation, unless they had, PC port, there were versions of it on PC during the same time that they were released. Where are they residing? You can't play them again. So I'm going to even make an effort of getting my 360 out of, underneath the stairs, booting that thing up and making sure I've got everything that I want off that store. Because there were some real good games on the 360 that only had an arcade release and no physical.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of games I did buy on the 360 that I cannot play on my current Xbox. Mm-hmm. Mainly the old Street Fighters and Marvel vs. Capcom games.
Yeah.
And that's a collection I've been waiting for. Forget your Gears, I want that. All on a single tile. But no, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, Microsoft have really led the way when it comes to game preservation, backwards compatibility. Mm-hmm. With every single piece of hardware they've released, they've done the utmost to kind of bring your library with you. And that's a lot more than I can say for PlayStation and especially Nintendo, who just resell you the same damn game. They've gotten a little bit better, but I only say that because you can now play older games, but it's through their online subscription service. So it's kind of like a half step. So, I do welcome the news about this game preservation team that Sarah Bond mentioned recently.
Oh, 100%. And I don't know whether these ones that never made the jump over from the 360, because my understanding is the reason they haven't is because of licensing tie-ups and complications between agreements of how they were on PC versus the 360. I would love to see them be able to get beyond that, because there's just some amazing games on there, and if Microsoft can really commit to that, that's a real unique selling point for me. Just in the fact that I think it will eventually kick into people that go, you know what, I spent all this money down the years, and maybe I want to actually go back and play that game again at some point, and I can't do it anymore. And that's why I've been buying more physical stuff these days.
Yeah. I think that there's also an element of the legal agreement that will have to change as well, because if you think about it, right, if you've got a game, especially things with like movie tie-ins and real actors and stuff like that, the contract explicitly states we're going to make this game and this game only, or the same thing for music and soundtracks, right? That's why when you get a lot of remakes, you get old music that wasn't brought over to the remake or remaster.
Right.
But I think what will happen going forward, obviously with the lessons learned, is that Microsoft, PlayStation, and Nintendo, whoever, are going to go to these studios and say, you're giving us the licenses to kind of do what we want with this on this console and future versions of that console. So it'll be it'll be an amendment to that contract going forward, I think.
Well, hopefully, because it didn't even Insurgency Sandstorm or something got delisted off of the Xbox, the Xbox store we got now, because of all the licensing music that it had. The licensing expired, therefore they couldn't sell the game anymore because of the real decent music that, popular mainstream artists were in that game.
The same things happened to Forza Horizon 2, 3, and I think even 4 now.
Well,
it's been delisted, yeah. So I've gone ahead and always bought the old Forza Horizon games.
Yeah.
I can get back to them. Because the music in that game is amazing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they really did kind of help make, some of that DMB stuff a bit more mainstream, some of the dub. Yeah. I mean, I remember the iconic tracks on Forza Horizon 3 especially.
Oh, 2 is my jam. Hospital Radio.
Hospital Radio, yeah. I'm trying to think what were some of those amazing event pieces on 2. They all blur into one after a while. But
I think the events came in 3 or 4.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, 2 was... It's funny because when I first played 2, it's not often I get blown away by a game, but 2 really blew me away. I didn't play the first Forza Horizon game. So when that came out, I was like, oh, let me try the demo. And I was like, holy S, this just really, I was flabbergasted. Just completely took the words out of my mouth. And a lot of that was to do with the music.
Well, the music and definitely that open world element that was done right and not done sparsely.
Yeah.
Like so many other games that tried to do it before. I'm looking at you, Fuel. Wow. That game was one of the biggest open world racing games ever made. And one of the most boring open world racing games ever made because there was nothing to see on that game.
I think the name says it all, isn't it? Fuel.
It ran out of fuel pretty quick. It came straight off of, outside of my disc.
Speaking of the crew.
6 hours. Well, the crew. Well, this is it. This leads on to the same issue again. Ubisoft has recently removed the license for the crew from players' libraries. So if you've got
with that.
I know.
That game was
the game wasn't that great. It wasn't that great.
It doesn't deserve to be preserved.
but the point of, again, I think it just tries to harness the point that you buy digital, you're pretty much going to have to accept the fact that, circumstances can arise. You're not going to...
You know what it is?
And if you've got a big backlog, can you imagine buying that and so I haven't got round to it yet? Oh, well, you're not going to get round to it now.
I don't think people want to get around to playing the crew, to be honest with you, but that's just my thoughts. You know what it is? It's a classic case of, I'm a human being, I've paid money for this thing, why are you coming into my house and taking my thing? Yeah. It's really what it is. And there is this weird law or reasoning behind software companies that, oh no, even though you've bought it and it sits in your house, we have the right to stop you from using that thing. And that's where it gets a bit weird. It's like, I understand for things that may have an online connection to a server or a service that you may ping to, like Xbox Live or something like that. But, you know, if I bought a disc, don't block it with updates. Okay, fine, I might not get an update of, you know, some skins or whatever, but I should have the right to play what I paid for on day one.
Exactly. I think, do you know, the more I think about it, I think that's why Titanfall, the original Titanfall, just wouldn't install on my Xbox.
Because you bought that recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought I thought, oh, it'd be interesting to see whether this game actually still plays. Obviously, it didn't. When I looked into it further, I think they closed the servers down for it or something. But the fact that the game didn't even install on my Xbox was really weird, because I looked at that game meticulously. There was not any deep scratches on that disc. There was no reason why that game shouldn't have installed.
So it sounds like the package was just completely taken off the server.
Something like that.
Interesting.
Obviously, this again throws up the debate open that maybe the whole game should be on the bloody disc. So it's another thing to think about. I don't know. It's not as simple as going buying a Mega Drive, putting a cart in, and if you 30 years down, you get a real nostalgic feeling. Well, people of today who were growing up, you know, in a different generation, maybe their nostalgic feeling was an Xbox 360 as their first console. They want to go back and play it. Oh, I can't.
Yeah.
Because...
But I will say something, though, and I don't know if I completely agree with this, but, you know, it does, at least the world we live in today with all this digital media, it does create some thirst for a remake further down the line, which obviously guarantees the developers more money. Now, you telling me if tomorrow or this summer they announce Titanfall 1 remake or remaster, you're not going to buy it? I probably will.
Well, I'd rather, as we said on the last episode, I'd rather they just do a Titanfall 3.
I mean, that's...
But throw in the classic... What they need to do is throw in the classic maps from that game. That's literally all they need to do, and they can give it a third.
But don't do it with every game. I mean, no one's buying The Crew remake or remaster.
No, definitely not. I tell you, I'll take a remaster of Burnout 3 Takedown. My word,
I'll do that as well.
Perfect balance. Actually, speaking to one of the developers of that on X earlier this week, because they were debating about what was the best Burnout game, and Burnout 3 Takedown was just a sweet spot, because Burnout Revenge, it got too easy because you merely tap a car and it flies halfway across the air. Burnout 3, you really had to use that shunt mechanic absolutely beautifully.
Yeah.
Then you look at Dominator on the PS2, rubbish, not particularly that good.
But Paradise
was great, highly revered, and it was more revered for a different reason. The fact that it
was open world.
The thing with that game was the route finding on that game. You were rewarded for finding specific routes to get to that checkpoint earlier than anyone else. So it made it a different Burnout game to what it was originally conceived as. So it was a bit of a different. And then I will stick up for this game I absolutely love Burnout Crash, and apparently it's, you know, Metacritic 60 something. I still think it's one of my favourite Burnout games. Did you ever play the top-down version? Because it was Burnout top-down. It focused solely on the detonation mechanic of the game, but you played in a top-down view.
Was that the one where it gave you like scenarios and you had to like detonate it at a certain point or hit a specific object to get the most maximum damage through points or something?
Yeah.
Or am I thinking? Yeah,
It was a top-down version of it.
Yeah.
And it was more of a strategy game type thing. And apparently it wasn't particularly well scored because everyone was expecting a sequel to Burnout Paradise, apparently at a third of the price. A third of the price!
You know, I'm at that stage with games, right, where I'm just so done with game reviewers and critics, right? Because you got to think about it, right? If you're a game reviewer, and I think I said this in the last episode, if you're a game reviewer, you see the best of the best, the worst of the worst, and everything in between, right? The average person doesn't play every single game. It doesn't get put in front of you on a platter, right? Like review codes do with these game reviewers. So these, you know, general public, they'll play a game for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then say, you know what, I fancy something else, whether it's your Game Pass, download something for free, or buy it in the store, and then it's a nice, refreshing experience. Sometimes not every game you play has to be the best game ever made. Sometimes I just want to play old games because it brings back nostalgic memories and it's easy. It's 2 buttons, an attack and a jump or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something that isn't.
Oh, no, exactly. And there's another whole fundamental flaw to it as well, in the fact that, yes, they do get the game early, but they're still under pressure to get through that game and, and play through that game.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a whole different experience with time pressure. You're not necessarily going to enjoy every single nuance of a game without that pressure on your back to get that review out ahead of everyone else. And then there's details that, potentially get missed as a result of that. You put your review out and then someone's already patched it with a whole bunch of new stuff. Whole different place now, since it's all connected to the internet.
Plus, there's, a lot of rumors of these under-table dealings as well. If you give a such and such publisher a bad review, then you won't get review codes later on. So a lot of
publishers need to do better with that, yeah.
That's true. There's a lot of, that's why I actually prefer watching reviews by random YouTubers.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Because they got nothing to lose. They might not get a review code, but they still make money on their YouTube videos.
Yeah. I just look at the, average. I don't even bother looking at scoring, because I've played some games that have been given really poor Metacritic scores, and I've still enjoyed them. I don't know.
I'm going to say the opposite. I was really annoyed when the Starfield reviews came out and IGN scored it a 7, and I was like, oh, this is BS. And everyone was going 8, 9, and there was even a couple of weirdos who said 10. Yeah. But then it's funny, because when I did play Starfield, and I, digested it, played it for a month or two, and I was just like, you know what? This probably does fall within the realm of a 7.
I think they got it. I think they actually got it right as well. Yeah. Really interesting, because until you get up to about nearly 100 hours on that game, or 50 hours perhaps, there's a gloss to it that starts off with on Starfield, and then very, very, when you start to realise that the main storyline is perhaps one of the worst features of that game, and all the side missions were actually the more interesting content, then you started to see, that mini game, every time you had to go and collect, I can't even remember what you were meant to be collecting in there now, it's gone from the memory, but you had to go fly over inside this structure and do all of that spin the wheel thing before it ends up giving you the ability. Do you know what I mean?
When you collect the powers, you
collect the powers. It's like you're going to throw that at me 15 to 18 times or however many times in that game, and you're not going to change it up once.
As an achievement hunter, I had to do it 15 to 20 times in a row.
Yeah.
And then after every single time you do it, you got to fight a Starborn at the end of it. So
yeah. I think I do genuinely think that is actually that's actually fair. On the whole,
I noticed the issue with Starfield very early on, because it started off fine, and then obviously the 30 frames hit me, and I was like, oh, this is rough, and okay, let me just go with it and see how far I can take this thing. But then when you finally get your ship, the first one that's given to you, and then it tells you to make your own way to Jemison or wherever it is, and then I'm sitting around, screwing around with that bloody map. Which solar system is it? Which planet? Which point on the map is it? Have I hit the right point? No, I've landed in the middle of nowhere. Let me get back on my ship, loading screen. Let me get into the cockpit, another loading screen. Let me open up the map, hit another point, loading screen. It really took people out of the immersion. And Todd Howard's not normally, wrong, but the fact that when he announced Starfield, he said it took 25 years to make and the technology just wouldn't permit. I mean, the technology didn't permit it this time. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
At least Fallout, much smaller game, it felt like more of an open world because you can kind of see into the distance. This game didn't really give me that.
Well, I'm assuming we're going to hear something about Starfield DLC coming up to the, June. Yeah. I'm not holding out massive expectations for it, to be honest with you. But again, the fact that the ecosystem is there, they say they're going to support the game for a decade, right? At least. Well, they built the ecosystem out that they could do it. But boy, they need to start populating some of these planets with actual stuff.
I think they will. I think, it's not just going to be a case of, oh, here's a story expansion. Here's a story expansion. Also, we've added to every planet this thing that if you find it, it will do this. Like, Bethesda are good like that. They'll always add a ton of Easter eggs, some more obvious than others. But raises the question, at least for me, do I want to jump back into this game every single year, or do I want to wait until it's finished, then go back in and have a completely new experience? And I'll talk about this with another game later on as well.
Yeah. Well, I've got to give the game some credits in the fact that it was Starfield that kind of reignited my enjoyment behind what was a number of stagnant, felt very stagnant, same cookie cutter experiences. And I got into Starfield and it just kind of gave me a little bit of, oomph, enjoying gaming again. Because that concept, as annoying as those loading screens were, there was still a little magic about it. But it's just that, once you got past about 40, 50 odd hours, you were like, yeah, okay. We could see where these limitations are.
I'm just sick of the Curation engine, to be honest. I really wish Bethesda would just embrace a new engine and just pull the band-aid off.
Are they still using that engine for the new Elder Scrolls game?
Oh, we don't know yet. We've only seen that teaser movie that they showed almost 5 years ago now.
Well, hopefully it's on a new engine.
I mean, they should show something this summer. Yeah.
I've actually got I was going through my iPhone purchases from 11 years and restored all the games I bought from 11 years back onto my iPhone.
There you go.
And there was do you remember the E3 where they announced basically Skyrim on a refrigerator? They didn't announce it, but I'm taking basically Synonymous was sticking it on every platform. They'd stick it on an N-Gage, Nokia N-Gage if they could. But they released the mobile version of the game. It was like a side game it was like a Skyrim. It was called Blades or something like that.
Oh yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, that was in my purchase history.
God, there were some great mobile games in the first 100%. First 3 to 5 years of the App Store, and now everything's just a microtransaction haven.
Oh, yeah, it's got very diluted, yeah.
Oh, I cannot stand smartphone gaming anymore.
No.
I'm tired of ads. I'm tired of, you want to continue playing? Pay us 99 cents. I'm tired of it all.
There's got to be some good stuff out there, but in terms of the real good stuff that's still being produced, it doesn't seem to find its way onto the App Store charts.
No.
It's bombarded by this rubbish. Yeah. And I was looking at some of those games last night. Where's My Water, Cut the Rope 1 and 2, the Angry Birds collection, Republic,
Jetpack Joyride.
Jetpack. There were some real classics on there that worked. And then you had people trying to make Need for Speed Most Wanted work on a mobile phone, all these ones where if you try and touch the screen, good luck, Virtua Tennis on mobile, don't even bother.
Oh, there was even Grand Theft Auto San Andreas at one point.
Yeah. But
I think that's that's part of the reason why Apple brought out Apple Arcade, because it got to a point where it was like, okay, games is our biggest category on the App Store, but it's just plagued with microtransactions. So what about people who want to play games but don't want the microtransactions? Obviously, there's no money in it for independent developers. We'll foot that. So pay us $5 a month and you get access to full games, no microtransactions. And I actually, in the couple of trials I've signed up to, I've really enjoyed Apple Arcade. Problem is they don't refresh the catalog all too often, like Game Pass.
No, they don't.
They announce 3 to 6 games a month, but Apple Arcade is once every 6 months, if that.
Yeah.
And Apple TV will always take a back seat when it comes to actual consoles. So it's a bit of a hit and miss for me.
It's still quite good to. Did you ever have a chance to play it on your MacBook or something? Because I was playing the Football Manager handheld on it, and it played beautifully.
I was playing the Family Guy kart racing on my iMac.
Oh, right, yeah.
Oh, it ran great. And Taiko no Tatsujin was also on Mac as well, which I was really surprised. Yeah. Easy 2-button game to play as well.
Yeah.
I'm all about the simple games nowadays.
I'd be interested to see whether they're going to add a bit more bulk to Apple Arcade.
Yeah.
They might do. You never know. They might, at some point, Death Stranding might find its way on there.
Well, it has to. I mean, Apple have been doing a lot of things lately when it comes to games.
Yeah.
So I got a good feeling that this is the start of some. I mean, last WWDC, they announced a lot.
Yeah.
APIs, game modes on Macs, the Death Stranding, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil freaking Village, all came to Apple devices.
Yeah.
So with what, 2 months, or April, May, June, 2 months away from WWDC 2018. So we'll see.
Super pumped for that.
Oh, I'm pumped for that. I might even do a live reaction and then delete it if there's no mention of games.
That's a good point, yeah. Well, anyway, I'd be interested to see what they come out with WWDC. At least, hopefully, it's something that's pushing the envelope, but we'll see. Next news story then. Well, this isn't the first time Game has been in potential financial difficulty. I think I remember buying shares of Game back when they last went into administration many years ago, and those shares really matured, and I think I had about 250 quid's worth of Game credit or something like that.
Nice.
Well, anyway, they've introduced some redundancies at the store. Did you probably moved over stateside before Game got as bad as it did, but it's really, you go into a store now and you question why you go in one. It's 40% plushies, 40% board games, 20%, if not less, actual games.
It's the same in GameStop over here in the States. So I walk in there now and literally, it's just light up toys that you put on your desk, and, the PlayStation logo, and like you said, plushies and Pokemon cards and things like that. And I guess if there's a market for it, fine. But you don't walk into a GameStop for that stuff. You walk in there for freaking games. Yeah.
So I don't know whether they'll, weather the storm with this one. But they've essentially gone down to a skeleton crew of 0 hours contract employees. I mean, there's a few that have full-time contract, but predominantly they're running on a smaller, set of employee group and more on zero contract. But yeah, it's a shadow of its former self, 100%.
That's sad.
It is. Game Station and Game.
Yeah.
Those were iconic memories of down memory lane, and so many more independent stores that just
Toys
no
R
longer
Us.
exist. Toys R Us, yeah.
Toys R Us, don't get me wrong, you pay 20 quid extra for every game in there, but you walk out with more than just games.
Exactly.
Pretzel flips. Bags of pretzel flips. That's what I would walk out with.
Well, don't get me started on Blockbuster, man. But we'll have to do Blockbuster another time. I want to do a memory lane trip down Blockbuster video.
All right. I've got a story for you. Yeah.
So we'll go on to that another time. Next piece of news. Well, do you remember a game called Foamstars?
Oh, well, how can I forget?
PlayStation exclusive from Square Enix. Very, very similar looking to Splatoon. Well, the game came out, I think it was about February, and it came bundled in with your PlayStation Plus subscription. Day one, you could play that game online. You could get involved in foaming out. Well, anyway, it also came out around about the same time as Helldivers 2, which probably didn't help. We have some news, courtesy of Hazard Gaming, that the player base has reduced by 95%.
There you go.
This game is DOA. There's hardly anyone playing it anymore. Square Enix decided to take a live service game that is perhaps got already a niche appeal, and thought that would be a good long-term play, whereas they perhaps may have thought retrospectively that they should have just made this multi-plat to begin with. At least Helldivers came out on PC. This was a wholly 100% exclusive to PS5, so they don't even have anything to bolster their player numbers. So I don't know what to expect. I played some of it back in the day. I played about an hour of it, and you're not missing much, to be honest with you.
You know what's funny? The other day, I turned the PS5 on, when it was going through the hard drive, let me clean up some stuff here, and realised my PSN subscription had expired, because everything had a vast majority of my library had a little lock on it, a lock icon on it. Foamstars was one of it. I was like, damn, do I want to renew for this? I'm glad you gave me the lowdown. No, I don't. No, I don't.
But I don't know. Maybe Phil Spencer's going, we can help you out here a little bit, We'll stick it on game. We're not going to give you, front store featuring, but we'll help you out. come and bring it over to Game Pass, get some more players.
We'll give you Pentiment.
We'll give you it in 260 frames per second now.
Yeah.
So that was that. I thought it was just quite interesting. We're going to bring you on the not next episode, but the episode after that. This was the news. For me, this was the news that we knew was coming, but no one was really sure when. Fallout 4 has now confirmed that their next generation graphics update is coming, coinciding, of course, with the release of the TV show that's already out there, which we'll be covering next episode. This next-gen graphics update is going to be available on April 25th. Return to the Wasteland in, with extra polish.
4K 60.
So, 4K 60 on the Fallout, and it's got me excited.
Did you ever play Fallout 4?
Of course I played Fallout 4, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I didn't complete it.
How far did you get into it?
30, 40 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I need to do more.
You weren't always a Fallout person, from what I remembered.
I think my experience was when I wasn't really au fait with these types of games, and you could say that when Fallout 3 came out, there weren't too many of these games that kind of were about. So I didn't know fully understand what level caps were and all of this stuff. So in Fallout 3, I veered off the beaten path, got myself into a bit of a problem, and couldn't find my way out of that problem. And I was like, So I should have, now I understand the concept of it a lot better than I did. That's kind of what, and then I just never completed Fallout. So in a nutshell, I've not completed a single Fallout game.
Oh.
But I've put, a good 30, 40 hours into each one of them, except I've not played Fallout New Vegas ever.
That and Fallout 2 are the only ones I haven't finished. And 76 is on my list. I think we're going to tackle that at some point.
Yes.
But I played the first Fallout, the isometric point and click on the PC.
Oh, did you really?
I really did. I had a friend who was going on about it for months and kept telling me to play it. And I really wasn't into point and click strategy games.
Yeah.
And then at some point, something clicked. And I think it was just the aesthetic, the whole wasteland, post-apocalyptic, nuclear warfare and all that stuff. And I was like, all right, let me give this game a try. And then start off in the vault. The water filtration chip is broken. You got to go up there and see if you can find another one. And it just blew my mind how expansive and vast this world was.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to going back into that because I was the similar thing with Oblivion, because Oblivion's due to get the same, right?
Getting a remake, yeah.
And then I cracked open a couple of hours into that, and then you told me, and I was like, do you know what? I'll back out, because if I'm going to experience Oblivion again, then I want to do it with the extra graphics, which is odd, because last episode I said I don't really care about ray tracing and all this stuff. There's a point where the 360 stuff, it still looks damn better than what I played it. But when you're used to now your eyes, it's like the equivalent of, having not cataracts exactly, but your eyes are used to better. Your eyes are used to better looking stuff, and there comes a cut-off point where you're like,
you've
kind of
become
need
a gaming
that fidelity.
snob. Just face it.
I haven't played with this gaming snob.
Gaming snob, you're like, it's not 4K. Oh, you watch the Digital Foundry videos and realise that you're missing 10 pixels. How dare they?
I'm not that bad.
No, but you're right, though. But Bethesda games do have a certain polish / unpolished to them, depending on which one you're playing.
Yeah.
So if there is a remake or a patch around the corner, I would say definitely wait for it.
Some of the bugs have charms, though. Some of the bugs in Starfield were hilarious.
Yeah,
that's the charm of it.
What was the one in Skyrim where there were just random elephants dropping at one point?
Was it really?
Yeah, and they couldn't figure out why elephants were dropping from the sky, and then they found out that an elephant would walk into, I think there's like an ogre or a titan or something, and it would smack it up into the air with its club. And it would take 5 minutes to come back down, and people would just be like, why are there elephants falling everywhere?
Oh, God.
It took them years to figure that out, yeah.
Well, I hope they bring a new engine out, because there's no way it's not going to have bugs in it. Their new engine could be the new bug, like, extravaganza.
you know what it is? You know what Todd Howard's going to do? It's going to be Creation Engine 3. I'm tired of Creation
It's got a couple of AI middleware in it or something.
I get they want to make their own engine to not pay the commission for using someone else's engine. I get it. But there are so many other engines you can use that probably make a better game on Unity at this point, to be honest.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
give Unity a bit of life. I mean, there's
I'd be interested to see them make a game in Unity, because I reckon they'll somehow manage to like bring out bugs that nobody else has been able to recreate in Unity. But it's part
Fallout,
of the charm.
now on iPhone. Yeah,
part of the charm. Last news story then, just a little bit of information. So obviously Microsoft completed the Activision acquisition, quite a long time ago now, it feels. And we've yet to see the real bare fruits of that. And we've had some talk about the Call of Duty back catalogue finally arriving, perhaps, on Xbox. But that's not the story here. So according to True Achievements, they've been doing some investigation into the Storefront that perhaps the next game from the Activision Blizzard group is going to be Spyro the Dragon Reignited Trilogy, arriving on Game Pass, potentially. All of those classic Spyro games making a way back.
Yeah. 100% of them, all three of them.
Did you really?
On the Reignite trilogy, yep, I bought it.
Yeah.
I was a sucker for that.
That is a fantastic series. But that's a nice little, I guess, wide appeal game that they can throw onto there.
You know, that and the Crash trilogy, they look almost identical, except Spyro's actually finishable. And Crash is just so damn hard to finish. Such a hard game. I don't know what they've done with the difficulty on the remake. Oh, insane.
Yeah. I think I got stuck on that.
Yeah. I think there's one part where you're going across this broken wooden bridge. And I picked up the game and put it down so many times over the last 4 to 5 years trying to do that one level. And so I got to a point, I'm like, I want to play this, but I can't pass this level. We looked on YouTube. Yeah. I had to cheese it. Some guy managed to find this specific...
You had to cheese it?
I cheesed it.
What's cheesed it mean?
Okay, you're supposed to...
I heard something really interesting the other day, by the way. You know someone who's really super good looking, but is a bit thick?
Yeah.
Someone referred to him as a bulb chewer. So what's cheese it mean then?
Cheese it. I learned this during my Dark Souls playthrough, but cheese it is basically like, look, I can't do it the normal way. I'm going to find a way to just basically scam the game into getting past it. It's almost like cheating, but it's not cheating because you're not doing anything you shouldn't really do. It's just the game doesn't stop you from doing it, kind of thing. So you're on this wooden bridge, and it's got 2 pieces of rope on the left and right holding this bridge up. And you're supposed to walk on the planks of wood, obviously, but the planks of wood kind of drop as you're walking across it. So if you jump just right, you can actually stand on the rope. There's 1 pixel where Crash will stand on the rope. And you just walk slowly forward the entire way, avoiding all the wooden planks, all the enemies on this narrow bridge, and you just cheese it right to the end. That's what cheese it means. And I'm not ashamed to say it.
Okay,
Screw that game. Even PewDiePie, he had a video specifically on this level. And I'm going to play some on screen right now, and it is just absurd how difficult this level is for no reason. Doesn't need to be this hard. Why are we doing this? It's Crash. But yeah.
Well, that is the story of the roundup of the news for this week.
A lot of news this week, yeah.
Bit more bulk. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. What should we cover next? Are we going to go into our big featured game of the episode that you would have seen the box art? If you're not familiar with the box art, It Takes Two by Hazelight Studios, published by EA. This is really interesting, this game. My God. I had to take so many... I sat there last night going, we've been through this game, and I was looking at the notes, and I was like, this is a little bit... I need to jog my memory. This game, you need to jog your memory, because there's so much stuff that it throws at you. My goodness me. And you said, I think it was 20... I had to look back. 2021 Game of the Year at the Game Awards.
Yep.
And I can tell why. My goodness me, what a game. And it's one of those games that's probably a number of people have passed by because they took one look at the box art on Game Pass and thought, oh, this is just a family game. It's not going to... No. You need to go included. Out. Yeah. My goodness, you need to go out and play this game. So let's get into the meat and bones. Do you want to take us a little... We talked about it very briefly, so we'll start just very much at the storyline that we mentioned on the last week's episode. And by the way, feature game of last week's episode was Halo Infinite. We go super deep, and that's why we're basically doing a feature game each show. You can go back to old episodes. It just gives you a reason to go back to old episodes. So go back and check out Halo Infinite.
Yeah, nothing's out of date.
Some good stuff. Exactly.
Eternal content as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
you see the genius in the title.
Yeah, we've got some real beaut for you for the next episode. We're not going to give that away, though.
Yeah, even though we may
Anyway. Well, we might have done. All right. It's Fallout 76, okay? It's Fallout 76. We're actually going to go in there and get into that because it's a Fallout-themed episode that's going to be
Fallout
coming
season.
up.
Yep.
It is. Because of those announcements, we just had to look at Fallout 76, and I've not played it, and it's going to be super interesting. Mm-hmm. So anyway, back to It Takes Two. Storyline starts off really super serious.
It's deep, yeah. It's deep. Little girl going through her parents getting divorced. Mum's always working. Dad doesn't have a wife. The usual sort of tale that you see in the 2020s and late 2010s and since the 90s, actually, come to think of it. But yeah, little girl starts crying and tears turn her parents into little dolls. And you'd be forgiven if you pass this game up like I did. Because you look at the box art, you think, oh, this is, like you said, it's a family game. Okay, maybe it's fun if you're playing with a kid. If you've played a game called A Way Out, is it A Way Out?
Yes, it is.
A Way Out.
Same developer,
brothers
as well.
Yep. Two brothers go to prison. It's a split-screen online co-op only game, right? So you'll play the left side, your buddy across the world plays on the right side of the screen, and you can see each other's screens. So you can actually help each other out because you'll be separated at several points throughout each level of the entire game. And you'll be able to visually guide them. Oh, make a left. You see that part on that button over there? Push that. Now I'm on my side. I can grab this box and push it underneath you so you can step on it. It is a real collaborative effort. And the thing about It Takes Two that got me the most is not only is each level themed, you know, one minute you're in a child's bedroom, you're in the garden, you're in a tree house, you're in a snow globe. Not only is each level themed, but the mechanics change with the level as well, which is the part I think really pushes this game to a 10 out of 10, which a lot of reviewers have given it. So you could literally have, at one point, what was it? I had a gun that could shoot. You had this like a goo gun or a nectar gun or something. You couldn't shoot, but you could put this nectar on certain objects to make it explode if I shot it. So we have to work in tandem and collaborate. Okay, that looks like it's an object that can be broken. You glob it up, I'll make it explode. And so you'll have to take on the boss using those same mechanics. Then forward in the game, we've got a magnet.
Was it the big bee or the big wasp at that point inside the tree? Yeah,
the queen bee, and then the snow level, you've got we both got magnets, but mine's a positive polarity, yours is the negative polarity. So certain things you can push, certain things I can push, and then we have to swap to pull them. It really makes you think, and it's been nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea, in a bit more detail, with these abilities, so in each chapter, which, blimey, some of these chapters obviously got sub-chapters, and I think that the Rose's Room has been my favourite chapter so far, and I'll go into why a little bit later. But starting off, you start off the game in a shed. So Cody's got a throw nails ability, and May has the ability to punch you through objects. So those nails were super important for you to be able to traverse over areas, to be able to unlock areas I can get into. And there we experienced the toolbox boss.
There you go.
Which is super interesting. You're walking your way into this, this shed full of garden tools and all of this. Oh my God, the detail in this game is just unbelievable. Just the level of intricate detail of every single object, the way that you traverse in this game, these sliding roller coastery style mechanics to go around different pieces. So nice. Then once you get out of the shed, you go to the tree. And obviously we experience the ability of the sap cannon and your ability to detonate the sap on the sap cannon. So we had to, go across the rails, get this sap on this boss, on the queen bee, get round the back of it. You then would blow it up and do the detonation on it. And I think even within that section, or the lead up to the next part, we ended up having to, pilot a boat and a glider together.
Yeah.
And had to take control of the left and the right side of the wheels, or the left and right side of the weight behind the glider, in order to be able to, get inside towards Rose's room. Just so much going on. And then Rose's room, this is the level of detail inside this, because it goes into multiple different areas. So Rose's her favourite toy, or she's got a couple of favourite toys that are featured in this chapter. One of them's called Moon Baboon. And you end up going into this space level. So they've not just looked at it from a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids perspective. They've looked, how can we... Because that would just be a bit samey if everything looked like Grounded or whatever.
Yeah.
They took these little sub-universes in. So Moon Baboon, you do the whole space level, and where you pilot a UFO at one point. Yeah. And then you've got to, stop Moon Baboon, and he eventually kind of gives in and helps you out. And then even you go into a kaleidoscope at one point, and you have this whole trippy LSD section where there's all sorts of puzzles inside there. And that room was just so beautifully laid out, and the minute little touches of detail. So you go into a room, at one point you experience a lot of toys. And they were like, the Etch-a-Sketch, the classic toys that you grew up. Mm-hmm. And they're all little interactive, and you can all play around with them. And there's certain achievements as well. Do you remember the one where you had to pull back the little wind-up racing car and get it through the thing to unlock an achievement on that?
Yeah.
That is the level that we're talking about. There's been so much love put into this game. I can't recommend it enough. And then
the funny thing is, it's on Game Pass right now. If you've got Game Pass Ultimate, you pay your extra $1, you get the entire EA catalog, which funnily enough ties into the Rockstar story that we were talking about earlier with GTA Plus. EA have got this massive library of games, and this is definitely one of them that I think only a small select few people know what this is about.
Yep, definitely. I passed it up, myself included, passed it up. Several years, saw it there all the time, just immediately made presumptions about it and never looked at it.
Yeah.
And, it just speaks for itself how we're talking about it.
Never judge a book by its cover.
Well, exactly. Just a few more bits on the notes then. So, in Rose's room, that doesn't end there. You end up having to go into a castle. That's a whole different game experience. It turns into almost, not an RPG, but kind of like a top-down... isometric side-scrolling
castle crashes kind of emotional level as well. That absolutely. That poor elephant.
Oh my word! Yeah, I don't want to give it away for people because I feel like I'm giving away a little bit of the content here. But my word, this game gets dark briefly, and you'll find out why when you play through it. But I didn't expect them to do anything like that. And boy, you feel like a real sense of guilt over a toy. But
yeah, I had to stop playing afterwards. I was like, I need to reevaluate my life. What have I just
done? Inside, so going back to some of those mechanics, there's also a level in the cuckoo clock.
Mm-hmm.
And you play around with the manipulation of time and cloning abilities. So every single level, it throws something new at you. The snow globe, as you mentioned, the magnets, the positive and negative attraction. You needed to work that out properly to be able to navigate through. So those are some of the... And there's still the garden to go. We've still got a couple more chapters to go, but we're about 75% of the way through this. We can give you the verdict right here, right now. Even from what we've played at 75%. This is an absolute 10. 10 all day. I feel like we've missed a little bit around this whole heap of mini games that exist. In this game as well.
Yeah.
There's a ton of them, just little,
Besides
1v1 challenges.
Yeah, and you'll notice these throughout the game. Like you said, the entirety of Rose's room, for example, all of her toys are a sub-level. So you'll get a spin-off, a little space level, a little this, do a bit of that. And then within each and every section of the game, you'll come across 2-3 mini games where it's like, oh, you'll both have to, shoot targets as quick as possible before the timer runs out. Or you have to, oh God, I'm forgetting some of them now.
You got whack-a-mole, tug of war, plunger targets, rodeo, feed the reptile, throw the balls through the reptile's mouth. Sounds a bit dodgy. Horse racing.
But the variety is just incredible. It's not like, 20 mini games where they're all button bashers. No, the mechanics change entirely with every single mini game. And everything this game just throws at you, it just keeps everything so fresh and new. Yeah. Just when you think, okay, I might want to take a break now because this level's going on a bit. Oh, you come to a boss. And again, the box art makes it look very family friendly. And for the most part, the traversing and the puzzles are all pretty straightforward and family friendly. But those bosses, even for somebody like myself, I consider myself a pretty advanced gamer. Yeah. And they're a bit challenging. They really make you think.
They're just right.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is just right. And they could have got it wrong. But the challenge is just right on that. The fact that... And it's down to that revive mechanic, I think.
Yeah.
Because if they got that wrong, it would have really made it difficult for some people just to go through and experience it all.
It's that chemistry as well. It's, okay, we've been giving you a certain level of difficulty for an hour or so now. Let's kick it up a notch for the next 20 or so minutes. And then you do get that massive dopamine, that sense of satisfaction of beating that boss, and you're just sitting there virtually high-fiving one another like, oh, that was a great level. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, let's do it all again. Next one. So hopefully the footage on screen is selling it a lot better than what we're saying. But I honestly cannot stress to those listening, it's free with Game Pass. It's free with EA Play. There's really no excuse anymore.
Go through it, and if you don't want to, grab at everything in the game, if you just to play through the story by itself and not worry about picking up all of the achievements in the game, looking at about 14 hours for a complete playthrough without doing all of the sub stuff. Which, if you're just interested in the storyline, that's not particularly a game that you have to spend a ton of time to get through it. I'm just trying to think of any I think one of the last memories on that as well, I think when you were going around in the little like pedalo ship or the pedalo boat, and you have to fire cannons at the targets, and then you hit your boss there, which ends up being a giant octopus, and you're having to fend off these attacks from the left side. You've got the vortex of the water trying to drag your boat under. Just unbelievable. Yeah. So, that's an advert for hazelight there.
No, I'm really keen to see what hazelight do next, because it's been a good number of years since this came out.
Well, they've just done the Brothers remaster.
Brothers remaster, yeah. I would even go as far as saying that they could have B-studioed that, just outsourced that to somebody. It really makes me wonder. Like, they've clearly found their niche with these online split-screen co-ops. So if they're going to follow that pattern, which I wholeheartedly think they should, because there's no one else out there doing this kind of stuff, it really makes me wonder what's next. And I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully this year. I mean, it's been enough time that we can get something announced at least.
I think what's really interesting as well is they've not just taken the path of just going default down a sequel.
Yeah.
You had Brothers, then you had Way Out, now you've had It Takes Two. Are they going to go down another IP narrative? And, it wouldn't surprise me if they did, because if you look at the sheer imagination, I could never come up with some of these ideas. Yeah. And I usually come up with, I'm usually pretty good for, coming up with ideas. They just, I don't know where they get some of them, maybe they're dabbling with something to get some of their ideas. I don't know, but I really hope, I hope it's something new, but I definitely think It Takes Two. You look at all of the characters in the game, you could possibly see something happening with the daughter in a potential follow-up. But for me at this time, once I'm done with, I'm quite happy to wait a few years for a second one. But they're going to have to come up with some. If they do go and re-explore this again and do a follow-up at some point, they're really going to have to try and find new ideas, because they've used so many ideas in this game. It's probably going to take a number of years for them to come up with new ways to play with the co-op experience.
Whoever the designers are, give them a pay rise. It's that simple. Keep them on.
Well, there you have it. Absolute endorsement, ringing endorsement there for It Takes Two, and we can't wait to get that game fully finished off. Well, we're taking the extended play experience, because we're going to go through,
the scenic route,
get some of the achievements, and some achievements I'm going to miss because they're too difficult.
What's it called? Hell Tower.
The Hell Skill or the Hell Tower or something.
Hell Tower,
as you'll be able to see from my footage of my platforming abilities, they are much to be desired. But you can't be. Turn it on a dime. We'll get some footage of us playing FIFA at some point, I'm sure, and I'll feel much better.
Never happened. Never happened. For the record, I am not good at sports games, and I don't have an interest in them either.
No. Well, not even. Would you even get an NHL game a go?
Nah. Okay. A bit of a lie. I like arcade sports games.
Okay.
If there's a football game when it's pass and shoot, I can do it. I can't do a FIFA. There's just too much going on, and I don't know what it is. It's too slow paced for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, football games need to be a bit faster.
Okay, I'll keep.
In my, I'm. Don't quote me for anything when it comes to sports. Just not the guy. Not the guy. No.
All right. Well, if I see anything that you might like, I don't know, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
So that it wraps up our featured game of the segment, and no doubt we might brush a little bit about it in a future episode, but very, very lightly in our Games of Played of the Week segment. Coming up are two interesting, what I call our evergreen section, two interesting prospective questions that we ask each other on an episode-to-episode basis. And this week, there's a couple of bangers, because I wanted to really push out the worst game that both of us have played in the last 30-odd years, in the last 3 decades, taking ourselves just around about 16-bit era onwards. And I'm gonna go to yourself first, Shady, because you've got a very iconic name here for your one.
Iconic, it's close to my heart. I really didn't want to name this one as the worst game in the last 30 years, but the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't get away from it. And that game is Duke Nukem Forever. Was a massive PC gamer when I was a kid, early teens. Mm-hmm. And, your Dooms, your Wolfensteins, your Duke 3Ds, all of the Hexen, Heretic, Quake, you name it, I was across all of them. So when the announcement of Duke Nukem Forever was made, God, I don't even remember what age I was. I've got to be around 12, 13, maybe 14, something like that.
Yeah.
I was over the moon. Yeah, it makes sense. Huge game, pushed boundaries. The humor was great. Did a lot of things that games at that time hadn't done before. And so, the years roll by. We see the first screenshots again being built in the build engine, which was the Duke 3D engine. And then 5 years later, they ported it to Quake. Okay, makes sense. They want to make this game the best it can be. And then went over to the id Tech 4 engine, which I think was Quake 2's engine at the time. And then it just went dark. And we don't know really what happened. I think, 3D Realms had financial trouble. The game was costing too much. They ran out of money. And then obviously they had to shut the studio down, I think. So a lot of people left. And then the IP it was up in the air for licensing. So eventually Gearbox bought the game 20 or so years later and actually finished it off. Now, before I say anything, I'll say this. Regardless of whether this game was going to be good or bad, I would have still bought it.
Yeah.
I had a feeling it wasn't going to be amazing. But just because of the personal history I have with this franchise, I went and bought the special edition. And I've got a little Duke Nukem bust that came with the special edition, little concrete bust that's sitting on one of my shelves in my office. And, you got to remember, this game came out in the height of Call of Duty. where everyone's playing online. You remember the old 3D first-person shooters. They didn't have aiming down sights. This was a thing that had now become norm. Duke Nukem Forever launches, dated graphics. The humor doesn't really hold up in today's society. Feels a bit cheesy, a bit cliche, a bit too expected. No aiming down sights. Some areas had really rough textures. But it did do some things really well, and that was the environmental stuff. And that was one of the things I really liked about Duke Nukem 3D. You know, pretty much statues, buttons, hidden walls that you could push. It did a lot of stuff that you don't see even today too often in first-person shooters. But Duke Nukem Forever still did that. You could drive vehicles, hop in and out of turret guns, a lot of, you know, weird and wonderful things. Unfortunately, the story just didn't hold up. I think the game just came out at the wrong time, if I'm honest. If this same game came out, even on an older engine, Quake 2 build engine, it would have held up. It just came out in the wrong era. And not too long ago, actually, I want to say 2-3 years ago, the build engine version of Duke Nukem Forever got posted online by an ex-employee. And I think they even posted it up with the source code. And so obviously when that leak happened, a bunch of online modders grabbed that zip file, threw it into their editors, and managed to run small pieces of that 1998 or 2001 version of the game. And my God, does that version of the game look better?
Oh, really?
Even though it's pixelated as hell, unfinished, buggy, missing sound effects, clipping through walls, you know, NPC standing around in T-pose doing nothing. That was the Duke Nukem 3D that everyone wanted. And if I can find some footage, I'll be you'll be seeing it on screen right about now. But that is what we wanted. And I still hope till this day, there is an enthusiastic modder online somewhere working on that. Because it works. They've thrown it into the engine. They can do it. And the tools are there. I really hope someone's working on this. Project Duke 3D or Duke Forever. So that's my biggest letdown in the last 30 years.
Yeah, I remember playing it. I played a couple of hours of it. I was like, this is garbage. And I didn't bother.
I actually rebought it on sale recently for $5. Yeah, I want to go through it again.
Oh, okay.
It's just a guilty pleasure.
But it's not the worst game you played in the last 30 years. Excuse me. Edit that. That's been brewing for 10 minutes. Maybe keep it in if you want. I don't know.
It's easier to leave it in.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so I had a slight different thing on this. So if that's your biggest letdown, would you say? Because it's not the worst game that's been probably played in the last 30 years. But
I honestly couldn't think of the worst.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a struggle for me.
For you, we'll have that as the biggest letdown the last 30 years. And I've actually got the worst game that I played in the last 30 years.
I had to look yours up because I was like, what the heck?
Did you look it up?
And then I saw it.
Yeah.
Now everyone else is seeing it on screen.
No lie. Well, hopefully we can get the source footage for this actually, because it's a little difficult with these Xbox indie games now to retrieve stuff. So we'll see. Otherwise, I might actually see if I can get my Xbox 360 out and grab it.
Hey.
So the name of the game, you've never heard of this, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you now, because I was obsessed with Xbox indie games. I bought a ton of them, including still one of my favourite shoot 'em up games that was made in a claymation art style called Platypus. But this game was called GHXYK2 Classics Volume 1. And what is this game? Well, what is this game? It's very difficult to describe. All I can really explain is it's a game that's been made purely in Microsoft Paint by someone with absolutely no art skills whatsoever. And on top of that, it seems like they've decided to do whatever the maximum they could possibly do in terms of giving people a seizure and giving people nausea. This is the first and only video game that I've played where I felt sick. And I have to emphasize this. This isn't a VR game. This isn't inertia experienced in a VR headset. This is just a 2D in front of your TV set game that is springing out flashing imagery all over the place, disgusting audio, horrible visuals, and just, I don't know whether it was like some internal CIA like psyop thing or whatever, but it is so bizarre, and it's the worst game I played because physically somehow it managed to make me feel sick, physically sick, when I was playing this game. And if anyone, and how this even got on the store for Microsoft, like, I don't even think this game had an epilepsy warning on it, but anyone with epilepsy would have an epileptic fit if they played this game. No question about it. The amount of strobe lighting and effects and all of this stuff that's in it would make people ill. So that's what it was. And I can't even describe the game to you because you've seen the footage. It's difficult to describe what this thing is.
I was confused, but I've got a strange feeling that it's designed like this on purpose. I'll be honest with you.
But
because I didn't know what it was. The footage I saw was it was video camera to the TV footage, right? Blurry cam
that's the only
footage.
thing I could find at the moment, yeah.
Right. And literally, the guy was controlling a bicycle or something, a tricycle, and
yeah.
What's going on? And there was a fish head on the floor. There was some
You got to
writing on
shave
the
someone's head at some point.
Yeah, well, there was some weird text like "shave the poor guy's head" or something. I was like, "You'll see on screen." It's so weird. I don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so confused by this game.
It is very bizarre, very difficult to describe, but that is my worst game I played in the last 30 years. And believe me, I play some absolute howlers, including one that I played recently from our friends at East Asia Soft, who usually give us 1,000 Gs pretty quick. And but yeah, it's awful. And then we doubled down on the Evergreen segment this week as well. So we're looking into what game has successfully redeemed itself after a botched launch. And you've got one. So I'll let you start off because it would have been the other one I would have selected, to be honest.
Yeah, this is an obvious one for me, and that's Cyberpunk 2077. The amount of hype, the amount of time it took to release this game, the amount of mishaps that we had. You got to remember, right? This is quite possibly the worst launch in modern gaming history. Yeah, and this was unfinished. I was fortunate enough to own a Series X on day one. I managed to get my pre-order in. So me playing Cyberpunk on a Series X, I couldn't relate to what the issues were until I watched that Digital Foundry video and saw people on, previous gen, which you got to remember at that time was still the largest market share of people.
Yeah.
Not a lot. There's only 1 or 2% of the audience had the next gen consoles with this on. So the majority of people were experiencing a game that was practically unplayable. And even more so on the Xbox side of things, it was underpowered compared to the PS4. But PlayStation delisted the game entirely and gave refunds. And so you have this this story of a developer, CD Projekt Red, who made some fantastic, iconic games. The Witcher, still to this day, is getting updates, patches, 3 expansions. It's revered as one of the best games of all time, and quite rightly so. Even though I've not played it, I've heard nothing short of spectacular from it. But they didn't stop. They kept patching it, kept fixing it, kept adding those quality of life updates. And I love the game. It's in my top 5 all time, purely for the story. I thought it was so unique and the world was incredible. Just going around Night City and seeing what looks like a potential future could be. Yeah, the characters, the interactivity, the cybernetics, the love interests. Like, there's so many dimensions and facets to this game. But that was just me. But then, obviously, they announced the expansion, Phantom Liberty. And I've not played this yet, but from what I've seen, Phantom Liberty actually brings Cyberpunk into the game it was supposed to always be. Yeah. And so now reviews are hovering around the 9 out of 10s. And I'm really happy that the game finally got to where it needed to be, because this game needs to be played by as many people as possible. And more so, I'm glad that CD Projekt Red announced plans for the sequel. And, you know, it's in the design phase at the moment.
Oh, was it really? I didn't hear about this.
Yep, they announced 3 new Witcher games. One's a remake of Witcher 1, I believe. There's a remaster of something else and a new IP altogether. And then Cyberpunk 2, whatever they're going to call that. So, but they are going to be doing it in Unreal Engine, I've heard. Not the same engine that the first one was using. Yeah. But that was only just due to technical limitations and restraints. The verticality, you got to remember, a lot of large games, they don't have the amount of verticality that Cyberpunk did. And these are, you know, there was a large majority of these buildings you could go into with elevators and people and NPCs and stuff happening around the world, you know? So they had to design that engine from scratch. But since then, obviously, we've got Unreal Engine 5. So I'd be really keen to see Cyberpunk with the fit and finish of Unreal Engine, and hopefully the performance to match it as well, because, you know, that game deserves to shine in all the glory that it intended to have, or it should have had, at least anyway. So I'm glad it got there, and I cannot wait to eventually play Phantom Liberty. But they've changed the game so much since day one that they say that there's no point just installing Phantom Liberty and picking up, you know, where the expansion is, because so much has changed that CD Projekt Red themselves has said, just start the game again and get into the DLC, because there's a lot that's different. And there's a lot that's been cut out. I heard there's entire storylines been cut out, especially around the police side of things. There was like a corrupt police whole slice of the game that got cut. There was even multiplayer at one point that got cut. Bigger success story, underdog story, I should say.
Yeah, it's a great shout. I mean, no one was expecting CD Projekt Red to mess it up like they did at the beginning. Yeah. And I had faith that they'd be able to turn it around. I mean, they're not going to go and pan their studio, you know. And I still think people, like, I get it. That game came out, it annoyed a bunch of people, but they were always the studio was going to right the ship on that type of thing. You don't just release bangers like they have historically and immediately go downhill. There was obviously issues there, especially coming towards crunch of that project. And I think they got themselves into a bit of a corner there and got themselves out of it. For me, it's just, I mean, this should be an obvious one that people think about. And I've actually just, you know, gone and had to bring up just how many updates that there are for this. But my selection is 100% No Man's Sky. This game come out, you know, Sean Murray was viewed as the poster child for mismarketing a game. You know, he came out with that situation promising the Earth in E3 2013, and then the game comes out and essentially it didn't deliver what it's, you know, said on the tin.
Mr. It was Joe Danger himself.
It was like opening up a Ron Seal, you know, tin of Ron Seal and getting tarmac out of it. It didn't do exactly what it said on the tin. And, you know, rightly, he was, you know, given a hard time over that. And there were other developers that were similarly making promises that they couldn't cash. Well, anyway, the game goes quiet for a little while. And then all of a sudden they come out with just a shadow dropped almost first bit of DLC, which fixed a hell of a lot of the issues that were experienced with the game itself. And then another pack comes out, and another pack comes out. I mean, we're all the way up to 2023. Bearing in mind this game had been out for a number of years. So they've been feeding DLC free, no charge, for years. 23 content updates were given to No Man's Sky. This game is absolutely massive now. There's so much you can do on it. There's online co-op that works for this game that wasn't there originally.
VR support, exactly. You know, new planets, new areas to explore. That's just an unbelievable redemption arc, and I think it's, you know,
I think that's just another example of, look, we understand these things can get throttled, and that there are other variables and conditions and factors that perhaps, throw yourself into a situation where rather than say, look, we're just going to have to delay this game, you end up throwing it out into the market. I'm all for giving developers a chance to redeem themselves from a botched launch, but you've got to do it in such a way that it absolutely, you do it well. And Sean Murray's done it. He's redeemed his, if anything, No Man's Sky is perhaps even more popular than what it is. And No Man's Sky, you can take off from the ground, fly out.
I was hoping you'd mention that. They did the one thing that I wanted to experience in Starfield.
And and there's still other games that are playing around with these mechanics right now that they're not doing. I think that even the new Star Wars game that's going to be coming out soon from Ubisoft kind of makes it look like you're doing the takeoff, but you can still see it's a loading screen for a bit before you're outside of the planet that you're on. Outlaws, I think it's called, coming out soon with a DLC that, or for the biggest edition, it's nearly 120 something pound if you want the absolute.
Oh God!
But yeah, Murray absolutely doing fans a complete service, complete redemption. So much respect for that guy for doing that. He didn't have to come out and give all this content for free. He really didn't. And, the game's got that notoriety. People have backed it. People have come in and bought that game that, didn't want to look at it to begin with. I've got to get back into No Man's Sky and actually, get into that. I want a long enough break from Starfield. But actually, it just looks like generally there's so much seamless online co-op stuff that can be done with that.
Well, who
that
knows?
Might be something at some point in the future. I wouldn't say anytime soon, but at some point in the future to get into that. And boy, God, that's going to be a long one because 23 content packs, potentially extra stuff.
I just want to point out as well, No Man's Sky, it was the first, if not one of the first games to introduce procedurally generated worlds. Yeah. Something that a lot of games do today, including Starfield. Mm-hmm. So, and I remember having this conversation with you back in 2016, 2015, whenever this thing was. And people were saying, well, there's over 1,000 planets, or no, it was 6 quadruplet, I can't even pronounce the number.
Yeah.
Planets. And I looked on the back of the box and I was like, well, how is this only 6 gig? I was like, something's not right here. There's no assets on this disc. It's all made up on the fly. So, that was my thing. Was okay. They've given you this universe. What do you do in it? Is there missions, or is it just
there's
more
a whole heap of missions and stuff like that. Now, obviously, there's resource mining. It's part of it, right?
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of depth into this game now.
Yeah.
So it's I'm really intrigued to see how it works as a co-op experience as well. Could be super interesting.
No, absolutely. I found Sean Murray's last announcement pretty interesting as well, where they said, well, we've been giving you a universe for close to 10 years.
Yeah.
How about we give you a to-scale single world? So then Hello Games' next game is a life-size to-scale planet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. No one's ever done that before. Now, any game, you travel from one side of the map to the other. You could do it with a fast travel, or you walk for a couple of minutes and you're there, allegedly. But this is going to be to scale. You've got to figure out getting across oceans, planes, trains, and automobiles, and all that stuff. I'm actually really intrigued.
He must have some confidence because obviously he's, made some claims before. It'll be interesting. He's got to get over that hump of, if he's doing that, you can't just have barren wasteland everywhere and nothing to do.
My thing is, if this thing goes tits up like No Man's Sky did in the beginning, what's the excuse for this one? Oh, there was an earthquake, hence the DLC pack. It unveiled this underground world.
I don't know.
There's ways to disguise it.
Yeah, I looked at it. It looks interesting, but it's maybe his next project doesn't quite excite me in the same way.
It's the art style for me. It doesn't have the same oomph as No Man's Sky did. But who knows? Maybe it'll change. I'm
going to go very, very quickly over this because it's a tennis game. Basically, there's a new tennis game coming out, ladies and gentlemen. It's a new tennis game from 2K, Topspin. Topspin 4 is obviously revered as being one of the best, or it was the highest rated Topspin game of the series, but it was a competitor to Virtua Tennis at the time. There's no Virtua Tennis anymore. They've got no real serious competitor in the space. They've got their new title coming out, first game since 2011, and we were both interested, both fans of Topspin. I was a bit more of a Virtua Tennis fan, to be honest, but I did enjoy Topspin. £104 for the Ultimate Edition, by the way.
For tennis.
For the Ultimate Edition, £104.
You can go to Wimbledon for £104.
Exactly, and the strawberries and cream.
Yeah.
2K absolutely fleecing people as they usually do. They did it the same with their PGA game, and
they got to make up for all that lost money with Duke Nukem.
But are you looking forward? Are you going to grab this one, or are you not in any rush for it? Are you really looking for that tennis itch? Or
again, I'm not a sports person, but there was something about Topspin 3 on the 360 that I played it in passing, and I was just really surprised. Like, whoa, this is really good. It's a sports game that's not too complicated, has oomph when you smack that tennis ball, easy to maneuver, easy to pick up, hard to master, and so it really hooked me in. I hope that the time, since the last entry, and obviously there's going to be a changing of the guard, new developers, old developers gone. I hope they don't mess it up. I'll be honest with you, I have a feeling it's not going to be the same game. I just have that feeling. Am I going to buy it? No. If it's on Game Pass, I'll play it. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Definitely not paying £104 for it, or whatever the US equivalent is, $139 or something. No, that's just stupid. For tennis.
Yeah.
I can buy the most expensive racket for that.
I might crack it when Wimbledon's on, perhaps. Bust it open. I don't know whether we're going to get it on Game Pass or anything.
Well, I'll make a promise to you. If we're going 10 years on this podcast, then we'll play it as the backlog piece.
We'll play it as a backlog piece 10 years down the line.
10 tennis seasons. Yeah.
Okie dokie. Tennis seasons with tennis elbow by that point.
Procedurally generated players.
I'll be on the high strength cod liver oil at that point. But
yes.
Well, we're right near towards the end of the podcast here, ladies and gentlemen. But boy, have we got a little bit of a cracker here, because it is our play stack. But before we get onto our general play stack, recommended buy of this episode, I'm going to go straight into it. I'm going to recommend to you guys to go out and buy Stunt Paradise. What is Stunt Paradise? Stunt Paradise is the car equivalent of a Trials game, the motorbike game where you would traverse through the tracks and make your way to the end, front basing your weight and all of that jazz. Should know what a Trials game is by this point. Stunt Paradise is an easier to play, more accessible version of a Trials game, essentially, and 1/3 of the price of what a retail Trials game would come at. £6.69. Some really nice tracks in this game. There's 40 levels, and at some points it changes its viewpoint from being your usual on the side affair, left to right viewpoint of trying to traverse the tracks, down to actually going into full 3D at the front. Some interesting camera panning and perspectives to see some really interesting set pieces, like your car just narrowly missing a jetliner as you try and jump over ramps and all of that jazz. Are you getting a game here that's going to, blow the lid off a frying pan? I don't know where that reference come from. Is it gonna cut the mustard of a super stellar game? This is not the point of this. This is a game you want to play. You want to take an hour, a couple of hours out from a bigger, deeper campaign. You just want something that's super chill, super visually appealing to look at, has a little tiny bit of challenge. It just was something that was just very easy for me to recommend. A couple of things that could have been improved about it. Each level you can collect a gold star, and that gold star becomes more difficult to obtain, and you have to put a bit more effort in to get it. There is no achievements attached to getting the star on the level, so you only have to complete the level. So you can play through, and the achievements are all popped by level 20. So I got to level 20, and I was like, well, I've got all my 1000 G here. So the little impetus to continue there was perhaps not as strong. But by the time we got to level 20, that's where the game started to become a bit more interesting and challenging. I just felt like perhaps people just need just a good old, just a little bit of fun, couple of hours play. £6.69, super easy, made by Brine Media, so play it whilst you're eating hot dogs or something. That's my recommended buy of the week. Just a nice little short one.
Yeah, Brine Media, you're really pulling them out now, aren't you?
Getting the hot dog buns out.
Yeah. My recommended buy is a common one, actually. It's Dead Island 2. Initially, I wasn't sure why I picked this, and then I realized why I gravitated towards it. One, it's on Game Pass, so you don't necessarily have to buy it, so it's really cost effective. But two was I was really pleasantly surprised at the world of Dead Island 2. You're set in modern day LA, and it depicts LA extremely accurate. The locations, the lighting, the sun, the characters, the navigating through Beverly Hills and all that jazz. And I was just, honestly, the game and the levels and the quests, not something that, are brand new and we haven't seen before. You got a ton of fetch quests, sure. Go here, find this person, grab a key, go to that locker. All that stuff is still there. But it's something about the world and traversing in it that makes it a pleasant joy to navigate through. It's really polished. The visuals are gorgeous. You grab a knife, electrify it, and kill some zombies. It's really easy, mindless fun. And it actually has a co-op element to it as well. So if you want to play with someone and bash zombies together, you can go ahead and do that.
There's a co-op on it?
There is co-op on it, yeah. Yeah, you got to finish the first sort of 10-15 minutes and then it opens up.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's extremely fun. If I had one gripe with it, it would be the fact that it's not as the world is not as open as I would have hoped. So at first it looks like you're navigating through an open city, but as you start to walk a bit further out of city limits, you get hit. You hit a loading screen. Suddenly you're in a different part of the city. Right. So it does have these breakaway moments. I would have loved to have seen a seamless experience, throughout. Yeah. But as someone who has gone to LA several times, I'm actually astonished at how gorgeous and accurate they've depicted that city. It's phenomenal. So considering it's free on Game Pass, if you already subscribe, it's definitely worth checking out. Gorgeous HDR, 4K, beautiful graphics.
It was the first Xbox game that I've played this, as part of the Series X, with perhaps the exception of Flight Simulator, that actually genuinely felt like it felt like something that harnessed the proper power out of the console. You could tell that big difference in quality leap from everything else that seems to be playing on there, not fully taking advantage.
Absolutely.
There you go. That's our recommended buys of the fortnight, or the episode, or in this case, it's the week, because we're changing the schedule slightly for the next couple of weeks. So you might be getting new episodes a little quicker for the next few weeks at least. Well, finishing up then, we do our obligatory played section, and I'm going to bash through mine very, very quickly, except for one game, two games actually, that I'm going to go into a bit more detail. And where do we start? No, 3 games.
Perfect.
This could be a long episode. Sorry about the language there. I'm going to start off with a quick one then. Inks on iPhone. It's a pinball game, but it's a beautiful looking pinball game. If you could depict a pinball game, imagine it's pinball with a taste of Tate Modern.
Downloading it now.
Inks. Download that game. Beautiful visuals on this game. Very simple. Pristine. It's something you can imagine Apple making, because it's very, very clean designed. But the idea of it basically is to burst these little paint tabs on each level. But whilst you're doing it and you're traversing around, there's a thumbs up that's just appeared on your screen. That was weird.
Yeah. Interesting.
But all of the paint swirls around on the pinball table. and it ends up creating art whilst you're playing this pinball game.
Interestingly, that game is on Apple Arcade.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Apple's got exemplary taste. That was the quick one. I'm going to switch back to... Let's have a look. Did you have a chance to check out Stellar Blade in the end?
I did.
You did? I was just getting into that then.
Yeah, I
don't like it.
I don't know what it is. The visuals were gorgeous. I wanted to like it. I walked into it with an open mind. I typically don't play that style of game too often. I knew it was going to be over the top Japanese hack and slash with a really absurd story, and I felt that the combat was a bit too basic, to be honest. There wasn't too much. Yeah, maybe I don't. It was like I only saw a light attack and a heavy, and I know that you could hold down L1 and you get alternative attacks, but it just didn't seem like it felt like it was missing that Devil May Cry element where you can just chain together certain attacks and it will just let out this absurd amount of damage.
Certainly heavier. Heavier because the more that you pressed, the more that you pressed, it almost felt like there was a stamina that came with it, but there isn't a stamina bar.
Yeah.
I kind of got a different vibe on this.
Really?
I really took to it, and perhaps again this comes down to what you mentioned about people's perceptions of games based on other games that they've already played. This isn't a genre I do a lot of stuff in, so for me this felt really fresh. It felt like it was playing around with some unique stuff. So I've just got some notes on this. I've got like the tactical combat feels intricate enough on the boss fights that you have to learn the moves in this game and the nuances to take on the boss that you're fighting. So you can't just button mash these bosses. You might get lucky, maybe, occasionally, but you have to genuinely learn those extra moves and those new, your skill tree to be able to take on some of these on here. So I kind of made it similar. I actually had a reference here. It's like when you play a fighting game and you learn those fighting mechanics and those specific button presses and layouts to get it absolutely on par to get those attacks in to beat a boss. So I made a bit of a comparison to it being like like what you would come across mastering a Tekken game. But that's kind of what I felt from it. I like the visuals of the world on this. There's some really interesting elements of it, especially the rest points. They're like super interestingly designed. There's rest points dotted all within this map as you traverse it, and they revive all of your energy at any point, but the enemies that you face up against, you use the revive, they will repopulate essentially. So you might want to go to an area, pick up something like that. You can go off the beaten track in several places on this, pick up extra what effectively becomes skill points to level up your character, but you might get battered in that process. But then you can go back to the rest point and these same enemies will revive because of that, but you don't necessarily have to face off against them again. So right at the start of this game, you start from a pod, you drop into this planet, and all the rest of your crew has effectively died, and you're kind of on your own, or not immediately, but then you're on your own, and you're kind of figuring out what exactly has been happening on this planet. What's interesting, I thought that the K-pop style background music that kicks in gave me the memories of Scalebound a little bit before that game got cancelled.
The rest stops as well. Literally had some K-pop going on there as well.
Pick on the vending machine, change the radio. It was kind of like this weird, like chill, like lo-fi chill kind of.
Even during battle as well, you find a boss fight and there's this. Most graphically, I found actually most of the game's attention was actually made to the characters, and obviously this game's had some interesting discussion about the characters. What I'm wondering on is how the main character in the game. I mean, do you have to get a crowbar to take the suit off? I don't know it's just I don't know what you have to do for that. It's peeled on.
It's exactly. Is that that element. So there are people that are going to buy it for that alone. But I thought this game is more intelligent than that. I don't think it's one of these developers that have just come out there and said, "Oh, we're just going to play on this," and that's what all this game is about. There was some, there's content
It's not dead
in
or
this
alive.
game. So the game can be played in 2 modes on this as well, and the story mode being the easier difficulty of the 2. However, I mean, don't let that fool you at all, because it's still a challenge. It's not like you can breeze through it. But it basically gives you the opportunity, slight slowdown mechanics in story mode, giving you a little extra time to react to some of the enemies that you face in the game. So it feels, this is not as hardcore as a Dark Souls game or an Elden Ring or a Bloodborne. But there are little tastes of, there's no permadeath, but there are little tastes when it comes to these boss battles that you can see where there's some of that there, and I think the weight mechanic behind that combat. And then when I tried the boss fights, the boss challenge after the demo completed, it gives you a taste of some of these bosses that you're going to experience further down the line. They get super hardcore, so it's going to be. I'm contemplating picking this one up.
Really?
It grabbed me enough that I was actually interested in it, and it's not the usual type of game that I'd buy.
That's interesting. This is really not the type of game that... I mean, I played games very similar to this, but I don't know what it is about this one. It just didn't do anything for me. There was nothing compelling that made me want it to carry on. The combat felt very basic and slow, and I couldn't pull off what I wanted to. Story, I didn't feel like I cared about it. The only thing I can say in a positive light from my personal experience, I liked the visuals. The visuals were cool. But that was it. There wasn't... It didn't do much for me.
No. What did you think of the overall graphical fidelity on this? Because I thought if it weren't for the characters, there was a bit of a grainy muddiness to the overall world. It didn't feel like... I mean, it's obviously
weird.
a demo. It could be better on final release, but it definitely didn't feel like it's...
They always post that disclaimer at the beginning of demos, but 9 times out of 10, if they've already released the demo, they're pretty close to finishing the game. It's just a sales pitch at this point. I felt that the characters are really detailed. The world, it felt very textureless and simple in places. Obviously, the stuff in the far background, it just felt like there was less attention to detail. Stuff up close, it doesn't... this is a very particular style of Japanese hack and slash.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything different from anything I've seen before. I think that's probably what it is. It's like, okay, there was a big song and dance about this in the PlayStation Showcase. I think it was earlier this year or late last year. And then it came up again, and the demo came out. And I was like, all right, let me play it. And it did seem to get a lot of positive responses.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that bothered me the most was it kept pulling me out of combat every 2 seconds to play a cutscene. As soon as I get to a fight, okay, I'm getting into it, then bang, you get to that obligatory cutscene where it's someone has to run in and save you or rescue you because you can't take this massive boss, and it's just, it's not my favorite kind of game.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. It might be something on my list.
Your
but
backlog.
There's a few more I'm going to go, and we'll switch back and forth here. We've got some great news, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, absolutely. That Shady has finished off Vampire Survivors and got the full absolute sweet spot, as we were discovering that there is more DLC coming May 8th. You're glad, I mean, the amount of hours you stuck free of your living days into this game to get everything. And by that point, you were probably spent.
You know what the funny thing was? It didn't feel like 3 days.
No?
Which is insane. Yeah, I look at, was it Persona? I think that was close to about 3 days as well. That game felt long. I did that over the span of 2 months because that's a really slow-paced game with a lot of text reading, a lot to discover, a lot of story. But this, it's so addictive that every time you finish a level, or even if you die, it's just like, oh, let me play one more game, let me play another game, let me play one more game. And then you figure out a power-up, and then you get the secret levels, and you got to unlock certain conditions to get to places. It's just the more I do, the more opens up, and it got to a point where I was just so OP that some levels were just a breeze to walk through.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it.
It's a great game. But you were saying perhaps the new DLC, by the way, is not going to have achievements. We've been told, and it's Contra based. So
I think that's
don't know
probably
whether that's
why.
going to be in there. Yeah, that's what we've heard.
If there's no achievements, I probably won't pick it up. I mean, I got enough Vampire Survivors to last me a lifetime.
Yeah.
But I'll take it or leave it at this point. I even went as far as trying Brotato just to see what that looked like, because that looked like a more visually impressive version of the same game. Oh man, it doesn't play the same. It is the same game. It just doesn't play the same.
Shorter bursts.
I didn't like the combat as much.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back to it since my first game. Let's put it that way.
Fair enough. We've both been playing a little bit of 2K Drive. I haven't played much since last picking up on it on last episode, but still running on all things good. And I noticed that some of the little side missions have got a little bit of a callback to perhaps Crazy Taxi in places, all these little fetch quest missions and the cars and all that a lot. Still enjoy that game. Still recommend that people go check that out on Game Pass.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was anything else that you spotted. You might have played a bit more than me by this point.
No, 2K, I think I played only 45 minutes of it. I really liked it though. I played a couple of races, went around the open world for a bit, and that was it. Had to finish off Vampire Survivors.
Fair enough. There's a couple more that you've been playing as well. We've obviously already touched on Dead Island 2, but a couple of interesting ones on here. You've gone on to the Amnesia collection that's leaving Game Pass. Are you confident you're going to be able to get through that before it leaves Game Pass?
The problem is, okay, so there's this tile on the Xbox home screen that says leaving Game Pass. And so I'll obviously go and check out what's leaving. And not only is the Amnesia collection leaving, but Amnesia Rebirth is also leaving as well. So I think the collection's got 3 games.
Yeah.
And then Rebirth is the 4th. I don't know whether I want to finish it, if I'm honest. It's not a good game. Or at least the collection, the first game in the collection. It's really old. I get what it's trying to do, but it's the screen's constantly tilting to mimic the effect of some psychosis or some some trippy effect, and it gets really annoying. And the game likes to change the speed of your character constantly. So 1 minute you're walking at normal pace, you'll have a flashback of sorts, and all of a sudden you start walking slowly for 20 minutes. So it's just you can't get into a rhythm. And so far I've just found that all I'm doing is collecting tinder boxes. It's one of those games that I have no doubt I can get the full 1,000 Gs in it. Question is, do I want to? I'm leaning more towards the not, if I'm honest.
I've got that game. I bought it on Switch.
That's
going to be...
We're getting the worst version of the game.
It's probably never going to get played.
Yeah.
And then Binding of Isaac Rebirth.
Yeah. Bought this years ago, played it once, but after I was a bit let down with Brotato, I was like, I remember The Binding of Isaac had a kind of similar looking style to it. I wonder if I go back to that, will I appreciate it more? No, it's the Zelda dungeon crawler sections of the original NES game. Pretty challenging. I got a little bit annoyed with it because I got quite far and then died, and then it started me right at the beginning again. So I was like, oh, to hell with this. Right. There was no checkpoints or anything. So I don't know. Maybe I'll pick it up later on. Maybe I won't.
So you've been dabbing into a few bits and bobs.
I've been dabbing, looking for that next, Vampire Survivors dopamine high that I can't seem to find anywhere. So I went back to Dead Island 2.
I went back to Dead Island. Anything else on the list that's noteworthy or?
What else have we been playing? I played a bit of Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 with the wife. A bit more Taiko no Tatsujin with the wife as well. She likes the simple stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
How about yourself?
Well, 2 games that are definitely worth going into. Obviously, back at the Nintendo Showcase, their third-party showcase that we'd watched, there was a couple of games there that was like, that was pretty tasty. So I picked up one of the games on Steam Deck instead of Switch, which was none other than Pepper Grinder, which was that game where you had the character that would bore through land masses with a drill. And it's like a real super, like platform-esque type game. And it's a Devolver Digital title, so always comes with a slight expectation surrounding that. Really enjoying what I'm playing this game so far. The only thing that's a little bit kind of I'm a bit wary of is that the main stage levels, really cool, really enjoyable. You can attach guns at some point to this mechanic that you've got on your arm, keys and all of this stuff as well, with the drill. But the main thing for me, it's the traversal of making your way around the map on this game using that grinding mechanic. Because it's very similar to when you play Echo the Dolphin, where you've got to propel that dolphin to use that type of thing. It's not always you've got to really do decisions super, super quickly. And that's obviously going to result in you've died, you've got to respawn, died, respawn. It's not anything to knock the game in terms of it doesn't give you one-to-one reactions. It's just one of those ones that, similar to, say, something like Super Meat Boy, you've got to expect to keep dying in places. To give the game a bit more longevity, each level has 5 skull coins that you can collect. So far, I've not experienced an issue where I've hit a level cap where I have to go back to other levels and get those coins. I've just been playing through. Just give me your base coins. I'll go through. I want to see, what this game's all about. But where the game really spikes is the boss fights on each level so far, each stage. So they really do amp up. You're going to get frustrated with some of these because you've got to make the timed attacks just right. And one of the ones right at the beginning of the game is like a beetle. So you've got your landmass on the outside where you would essentially bore that drill and you can cut out of it and hit the underside of this beetle. And the beetle has the ability to shoot at you, but at the same time you're having to try and do whatever you can to stop getting hit by the bullets. And as you go in for that attack, you can still get shot at. So you lose health in places on this game. Sometimes you could argue it's a little bit unfair for it to be doing that. I guess the last point on this that's worth mentioning, it's £15 on Steam Deck at the moment. It's obviously on Switch and PC. No notes about a release coming out on any other console at the moment. But there's also, your usual cosmetics. There's a store like in Donkey Kong Country. You can go into a shop, that type of thing. Unlock a sticker book. Use a sticker book to collect because all these games have sticker books or whatever, similar to every Little Big Planet game or whatever. And you can upgrade your health before you start a new stage and all of that jazz. Really enjoying it. It's definitely as one of these sort of like 2D platform-based games. Definitely one of the stronger ones that I've played, and perhaps arguably I've probably enjoyed it. Not from an emotive level, but from an enjoyment perspective, I've enjoyed that actually more than when I was playing Celeste. And I guess the last thing I want to mention on this game is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is absolutely fantastic. Some of the best audio I've heard on some stages. That you want to go on to Spotify afterwards and grab that soundtrack for this game. There's some beautiful drum and bass, acid jazz in some places. It's not the usual type of things that you would hear on a particular video game. So that was Pepper Grinder, and I guess the last one that's worth a mention, which will be interesting for you because you've been waiting for a little while to hear my thoughts on Control by Remedy Entertainment.
I recommended this to you a while ago after you told me that Max Payne was one of your favorite games of all time, and I was like, have you played Control? And you had told me no, and I was like, oh, you're missing out. No,
now
exactly. You have.
So I guess for the audience at home, especially those that are listening, I've got to contextualize this game because anything from Remedy needs a bit of contextualization, especially since they also bought the studio that made Quantum Break, didn't they, recently?
Yeah.
So they've really got that whole this mystery subgenre conspiracy type. Yeah, it's every game, every Remedy game has a feel about it within this genre. So I'm just going to bash through these notes very quickly. So Control has a very conspiratorial vibe about it, where you're playing your main character Jesse, and you're almost pretty much trying to figure out, what is this place? What is this all about? I'm picking up documents. Half the stuff's redacted. I'm not quite understanding exactly what's happening. And the first thing that came off the bat to me gave me J.J. Abrams vibes from the series Lost. Do you remember those Hanso Foundation infomercial things? Because as soon as you come across these training videos, it gave you that real vibe. And there's just that unbelievable mystery surrounding this game. And you're in this superstructure where everything's kind of gone a little bit out of hand, which I guess you could say hark back to the scientists messing about in the original Half-Life game, in a way, slightly. But you're essentially in the Federal Bureau of Control, or the oldest house. And what makes this game so different from a lot of other games that I've played is this is one of the first 3D type Metroidvania-esque genre games, where you have to go and explore. Not everything is 100% on a linear path. The map and the navigation on this game is a mind bender by itself. Even if you press up on your map, on the D-pad, and you've got the map in front of you and you are walking around, this game somehow manages to scramble you on where you're going. And you really, when you get those fast travel points, you've got to try and remember exactly what is the benefit of me going to this fast travel point. Because if I'm going to this one and another one, I could see myself going around a whole maze again to be able to get to where I'm going. So that was super interesting. It was a little bit frustrating in times trying to meander through this stuff, but I don't think I've played a game for a while where the constant feeling of threat is always there. You're in this enclosed, huge, brutalist, federal-esque building that just gets bigger and bigger the more you play it. You think you've seen everything, and you've not, because now another floor's unlocked in the elevator, and this thing's absolutely ginormous. But there's that constant threat, because you know that you're pretty much the person that's essentially in a situation to meddle things, resolve things, essentially. So these enemies in the game, which are essentially former employees that have been taken over by a thing called the Hiss, they keep coming back at you. And you can go through one place because you're trying to figure out where you're going. Oh, I've gone the wrong way. I'll go back into that building. These bastards have respawned again, and I've got to take them all out. So you've got to take them all out. What's your arsenal here? Well, you've got a launch ability where you can traverse over widened gaps, or the ability to throw objects remotely, pieces of furniture, desks. You can do the whole works and throw them at your foes in this game. You pick up later on your seize ability. You can take someone's ability, health down to around about 3/4 of the amount, and then take over their mind, and then they'll work for you. They'll take and battle people out. There's a levitation ability. There's also a shield ability where you can grab all the rocks from the foundation of the building structure and give you that ability to be able to shield yourself. There's a lot of interesting elements to it there, and each fast travel point enables you to be able to spend source, which seem to appear in these bins and rooms and safe or panic rooms or whatever it is, that you can grab through it and update your character's abilities, guns, weapon mods, the works, you name it, it's in there. But the interesting element is to be able to acquire these abilities in the world. Mundane objects in this game universe have psychokinetic powers. So you might see a jukebox in a cell and you wonder, what on earth is going on here? Why is this X-ray machine? Yeah. Why is this X-ray machine so interesting? So these are kind of your little segments to acquire a lot of these new abilities. And I thought that was, again, playing into that mystery element that perhaps there are these shadow agencies that exist in the real world that are playing around with this stuff. You look at CERN, when they start playing around with the Hadron Collider. What are they really up to? It makes you think about that stuff. So the map's a maze. The brutalist architecture that's in it really gives you a feeling of... what's the name of when someone doesn't like being kept indoors? It's a name for it. It's the opposite to agoraphobic. Claustrophobic. There's a feeling of claustrophobia in this game. Mixing up your psychokinetic powers along with the gunplay that's available in it is absolutely essential. There's some enemies that will dodge every single thing that you try and throw at it, so you have to rely on your gunplay. There's mini boss sections in this as well that's providing a nice element of challenge. However, despite this game that's won 17 collective awards across the industry, including Critics' Choice and Art Direction, the aching, unbelievable thing that seems to be a continual trend for this generation, the game-breaking bug. So, after putting in 12 plus hours, I come across the level 5 clearance card glitch. So this is the one key card that isn't given to you that's on a desk next to one of these training videos. The thing isn't there. It's not there on my game. I cannot get to it. I spent 2 hours trying to locate this thing, and when I found the desk where you pick the thing up, it's not there. It doesn't exist. For some reason, it's not on that desk.
Have you looked up a video on YouTube?
I've looked all over the internet. There's other people on Reddit who's had the same problem, and the only thing that they suggest is to roll back all the way back to chapter 4 to get over this thing. And I'm like, there's so much stuff out there that's to be played right now. Do I want to roll? And I don't know how much that's rolling it back. Exactly. But I'm like, just enjoying this. And again, another one of these stupid things. And it begs the question, what is going on with quality assurance that these types of things keep cropping up? And yet they're so bizarre that it's not cropped up for majority of people that have played it, but it must be something that I've done. I don't know whether I've not switched the light switch enough when you go into the astral plane.
A specific condition. It's interesting you say that, because Control, the Ultimate Edition, which was essentially the Series X upgrade plus the DLC, had issues, right? So I got the Ultimate Edition on day one, and I experienced bugs. Hence why, if you look at my achievements for that, I'm missing one achievement. Right. Because this particular enemy would not spawn. And video after video showed me where it would spawn.
Oh, really?
It wouldn't spawn for me. So I think I got like everything except that one achievement.
Yeah.
But there are a number of bugs, and Remedy's bug patch cycle is extremely slow. It was taking them 3 weeks to get a patch out, and it just weren't fixing the ones that I wanted. So I think, if I remember correctly, I had to roll back to a previous save once, and I did have visual bugs and glitches as well. Which is a shame, because it really, especially for this game, it takes you out of the immersion. It's such an atmospheric game. Everything in the world means something, whether it's something you interact with or it's just there for decoration. It means something. Everything has a sense of history and purpose. And that's what I really loved about this game. It's that typical 1980s architecture of a classic American government agency building.
Yeah.
And it's, again, spot on. You know, you walk into the DMV in the US over here, it looks exactly like that. It's antiquated.
Yeah.
So it's believable, so believable. And it gives you the powers and gunplay of a typical Remedy game, and the story's incredible. And then you come across something like that, and it's just like, and I think I know where you are. You're on one of those flashback or flash forward.
I need to get to the Black Rock processing area, and I can't because I'm locked by the doors of level 5 clearance doors to be able to get through there. So I'm just a bit screwed.
Only advice I can tell you on that one, mate, is roll back and just see how far you are. Play for a few minutes, and if it's not too, it is a game worth finishing. Yeah, because like you said, that building, it's bigger than it looks.
Oh yeah. Well, I found what I assume is something to do with DLC, where I just jumped through this gap in a structure. I ended up collecting samples of mold for this random scientist downstairs on the right into the echelons where people start to get all messed up and they don't look like humans anymore. I've got to mention one thing very briefly. You can't on this game just sit from afar off and engage. This game forces you to press you into those combat situations, because when you kill enemies, it gives you health revive source or whatever they call it. That was really interesting, because I thought, I'm just going to pick people off from behind cover and play it like a third-person tactical shooter. You can't. You've got to use those abilities. You've got to run around. You've got to keep moving on this game. And that's what gave that sense of threat. That health meter goes down pretty darn quick. So much so that Remedy ended up adding an assisted mode patch into this game, because when it first came out, people were like, there's no multiple difficulty modes on this game. So now there's an assisted mode on it where you can even put, turn on God mode if you want to. Do you remember the section where you've got to get this random ball into that garage bit? It's like this thing.
I played it 3-4 years ago. Yeah. I just remember some of the fights towards the end. You go into like these archive rooms with books and tapes and stuff, and you start. I mean, I don't think you are there yet, but you start getting introduced to these new types of enemies that have shields and stuff like that. So it really makes you think, how can I break the shield? But meanwhile, you're getting attacked by all the little minions around you. Yeah. So there's a lot to think about, and the powers are exceptional. Like you said, you just suck up all the rocks and objects in the room and just launch it at your enemies. It really makes you feel super powerful.
Yeah. Why does this happen? Why does it keep happening? This generation is so frustrating.
Yeah.
I just wish that, I don't know whether they're not employing as many people. Like when I grew up, it used to be, before I realised that the money's crap and the hours are ridiculous, but I was like, you know what? I'll quite happily be a game tester, a QA tester for a video game, or a consultant, like some type of consultant thing. That used to be like a bit of a dream, like potential job. I don't know whether there's still, they've fingered this down to a very small amount of people, but this just seems to be a running trend.
The general notion is that games are more complicated to make now than they were back in those days. And yeah, they're not wrong, but at the same time, I also think the targets set out by the business and the board are also unrealistic as well. We've all worked in corporations where we have to deliver something, and it's like, okay, we have to deliver it by this date. The only way we can do it is if we cut these 3 things out and patch them in later. It's typical business 101.
Yeah. Well, that was Control, and whether I'll go back into it, I'm not 100% sure yet.
I hope you do. The plot does really thicken.
Maybe back when we're on a 2-week stretch, but until that point, I'm going to have to try and play something different, because we're here to provide you guys at home with some content. Well, that's it. That's a wrap. We've set a new episode record at 2 hours and 25 minutes. We'll guarantee you the next episode won't quite be this long, because we're actually recording on a shorter time span, so it should be a little bit of a lighter episode for you guys. However, expect the podcast to be dropping. Well, you would already be there, wouldn't it? Don't know why I'm saying that.
If you're listening,
it's already dropped. Yeah. But don't forget that we will be clipping out some highlights from this. So if you want some quick, nice little bite-sized segments, we'll have those for you too. And don't forget to get in tuned with that poll. Take the poll. Have I told them what this week's poll question is? No, I forgot.
I don't think you have.
I didn't. Oh, well, that didn't help, did it? There we go. The poll question of the week, as you may be able to see on whatever platform that you're on, Switch 2 is set for release in 2025. Are you likely to buy one? We gave you something on PS5 Pro. It's time to look at the Switch. Switch 2 2025, when they've got the components. So let us know. I'd be interested to see the results of that versus the PS5 Pro. But that wraps it up, and it looks like you're ready for bed, mate. I think you the tiredness has kicked in now.
So what I think the audience doesn't realise is that you're in the UK, and for you, it's what time is it there at the moment?
It's just gone 10 a.m.
Yeah, for me, I'm in the US on the West Coast, so it's just gone 2 a.m.
2 a.m. There you go.
There you go. The stuff we do to bring this quality content to you guys.
Exactly. Anyway, guys, that wraps it up. Don't forget to leave your comments in the comment section. It'd be great to hear from you guys, and we shall see you perhaps a little bit sooner than we originally anticipated for episode 3. A little bit of a Fallout moose boosh. But anyway, guys, I've been Nomad.
I'm Shady Armic.
And I shall see you guys next time. Bye-bye.